Ladies and gents, boys and girls, what is going on? Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. As always, I see Hunter Kelly, John Edward, Chase Floyd, Xavier, Bruin Nation, Brendan, Ethan K. What is up? Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel. Excuse me, the TDC Questions channel. Be sure your questions are answered there. We got a jam-packed show, a lot to get into here on this Tuesday. Also, it is media day for South Carolina. The following Gamecocks are scheduled to meet with the media starting at noon, which of course is right now. Juice Wells, Spencer Rattler, DeCarrion Joyner, Stone Blanton, Alex Huntley, Eddie Lewis, Joshua Simon, and DQ Smith. And of course, Shane Beamer speaking at 1:30. Just to inform you all, we will not be carrying Shane Beamer's press conference in that 1:30 hour, that second hour. We will have our good friend JC Sherbert of the Big Spur joining the show. And guys, we'll break down all of Shane Beamer's comments and players' comments from today on tomorrow's TDC. So just to give you an update, guys, that is how we're going to rock. We're going to operate. If you want to hop over and watch Shane Beamer and come back to us, you are more than welcome to do that. And I know that last year we aired the Shane Beamer press conferences, but we are not going to be doing that this year for the sake of the content, for the sake of the conversation. And again, guys, it does not mean we're going to be ignoring that everything Shane Beamer has to say. We'll be breaking it all down on tomorrow's TDC. Also, want to shout out my guy, Bryce G. Spur Your Enthusiasm, the latest member of the Big Cock Club. And Rowdy Rooster 75 says, what is the hat that you have on? My guy, it felt appropriate to wear this. So I've actually got the Beat UNC shirt that we have just produced with the College Collection and Walker Kennedy art. This right here, let's see if I can move a little bit closer. The 2021 Dukes Mayo Bowl Championship hat. Yes, I bought a Dukes Mayo Bowl championship hat. One of the biggest reasons is because I wanted to buy a championship hat for Shane Beamer's first ever bowl victory at South Carolina. It just felt right. I was like, this is going to be such a cool vintage piece in, say, a decade when hopefully South Carolina is winning much bigger and better bowl games, right, than the Dukes Mayo Bowl. So I figured why not, but of course figured why not today as well as South Carolina takes on UNC. Of course, the last time these two teams met, it was in that 2021 Dukes Mayo Bowl. So of course, anytime we can remind UNC who the real Carolina is, it feels appropriate to do so. Either way, guys, again, really excited. We got a jam-packed show, lots to get into. As I mentioned, our third hour, our Q&A power hour. We will take your questions, your comments, your calls at 843-790-3377. If you cannot call in that third hour specifically, call us right now. Leave us a voicemail, shoot us a text, leave your questions, whatever, and we will get into all of those later in the show. In our second hour, of course, as I already mentioned, JC Sherbert of the Big Spur. He will join us for our Tuesday segment. These are going to be a lot of fun in season, guys. Breaking down the game that was, looking ahead of the matchup of the weekend. Going to be a ton of fun talking all things Gamecocks. And we'll touch on some SEC as well with JC Sherbert weekly. And then, of course, guys, in this first hour, we have tons to discuss, including we're breaking down South Carolina's first depth chart, talking my SEC power rankings heading into week one. Also, my best bets of the weekend. Going to be a ton of fun, guys. Great convo here on this Tuesday. And again, guys, I hope it finds you well. I do also want to start at the show by saying this. Thank you all so much and celebrating a milestone with you all. As you all know, at the conclusion of each month, I like to reflect on the month that was, specifically when it comes to the podcast and the amount of listens or downloads, as I like to call it, that we get on the podcast, just to say thank you to all of those who tune in. And as you all know, a couple of months ago, we made a very strategic decision, a decision that not only was good for business, but also enhanced the customer experience, I would say. The listener experience was greatly enhanced with the way that we are now breaking up the podcast into sort of mini episodes on a daily basis. Well, I am happy to say here today that I know the end of the month is a couple of days away, but I'm happy to sit here today and say that, we had high expectations for this and high hopes, and those high hopes and expectations have been shattered when you look at the numbers and the performance and everything that we have done. As of this morning, guys, for the first time, obviously, ever, we set records last month. We set a record 65,000 or so podcast downloads. Not only have we shattered that record, but as of this morning, we have eclipsed 100,000 monthly podcast downloads. Guys, I cannot begin to express how grateful I am to each and every single one of you for making this possible, for tuning in each and every single day, for listening to the podcast. Many of you tune into TDC and you listen to the podcast. I cannot say thank you enough. Truly, this is something that, I felt like was possible all those years, but I think back to when we started, when I got 100 downloads on a podcast or 1,000 downloads and how crazy that was. And so to hit 100,000 in a month and it not even be football season yet, the season hasn't actually started yet, it is such a blessing. It's hard to put into words just how grateful I am and how incredible it is and how amazing it is. And again, guys, I'm so thankful for each and every single one of you for making it possible, truly, because it would not be possible. TSUS would not be what it is and what it's becoming without your love and support. So again, guys, thank you so much. The moon cheers to 200,000, 500,000, a million, above and beyond we go. Or as we like to say, to the moon we go. Guys, on that note, hey, let's get the convo rolling here on this Tuesday, August the 29th. We are 4 days away from game day in Charlotte, South Carolina, taking on North Carolina in primetime. The Gamecocks, of course, guys, it is depth chart season. You're seeing some coaches like a Nick Saban not even release a depth chart ahead of the first game. First time he's done that, by the way, in 17 years at Alabama. This is also or season, right? You look at these depth charts, and I think coaches, they really just put these out there kind of because they have to. I'm not sure they even want to do it, but it's one of those things that almost feels required at this point. You also like to throw your fan base a bone and let people know, hey, this is who you can expect to see on the field. South Carolina released their first depth chart of the 2023 football season. And while some will tell you, hey, take it with a grain of salt, a lot of different guys are going to play, jobs will be won week 1 to week 2, what have you, we're going to dive deep into this thing because I think there were some very interesting takeaways from South Carolina's first depth chart of this season. The guys, I start, what caught my attention immediately was the defensive side of the football. And obviously, guys, returning from injury from a season ago to this year, that is a big storyline coming in this season on the defensive side. You look at Jordan Strawn and Mo Kaba specifically. My attention immediately went to the weak side linebacker position. Debo Williams, listed as the starter over Mo Kaba. And I understand that Debo Williams is a guy that's catching a lot of hype and a lot of buzz right now, and someone that has made great strides in his game. But what this tells me more than anything, and I'm sure, again, Shane Beamer will update us on the status of everyone, but what this tells me that Mo Kaba is still not at 100%. I think health has to be somewhat of an issue. And this is not knocking Debo Williams in any sort of way, but we are talking about a guy in Mo Kaba that was an undisputed starter last year. He was an undisputed leader of your defense. When he went down, the effect of that was drastically felt. And certainly you look back at the numbers last season, stopping the run or lack thereof, his absence, the absence of Mo Kaba, was something that certainly you can attribute that to. I like Debo Williams as a player. I think as a veteran player now, very smart football player, I think he can have his best season yet. But that tells me for Mo Kaba to be listed as a backup that he is still dealing with injury. Because you look at the other linebacker spot. Stone Blanton listed as the starter at middle linebacker, and Grayson Pup Howard is his backup. Why is Mo Kaba a backup? The only reason I could think of, and we have heard that he's been limited in fall camp. I like Debo Williams' game a lot, but I think the only reason that he's getting the start over Mo Kaba is maybe because there's still an injury lingering. Maybe he's lost a step. I wonder, what does that mean for week one? Do we see less of Mo Kaba than maybe we expected in that first game of the season? Guys, my attention then went to the offense. And I mentioned it's or season, right, on these depth charts, or this guy or that guy, which is basically coaches just saying, we haven't decided on a starter at that position. You know, we talk a lot about the University of Georgia and their efforts to three-peat, and one of the biggest question marks for them is at their offensive tackle spots. They replaced both of their offensive tackles from a season ago. That's a huge question mark for the Dogs going into this season. Well, South Carolina is in the exact same boat. When you factor in the injury of Jalen Nichols, of course, Dylan Wanham, who was your right tackle most of the time, he departed from a season ago. You look at both tackle spots. Both tackle spots, there is an or listed. At one tackle, you have Sidney Fugar or Jackson Hughes, which both those players, neither were on the roster last year. Sidney Fugar coming from Western Illinois, Jackson Hughes coming over from Charlotte. At the other tackle spot, Kason Henry, the redshirt freshman, or Tyshawn Wanamaker, the redshirt junior. Both guys, of course, who were on the roster last year, but neither started at the position. We know there's questions with the offensive line. We've talked about it all preseason long. And so I don't want to spend more time beating a dead horse, if you will, but it just reinforces the question marks that you have up front. And if you cannot protect the quarterback, you can't protect Spencer Rattler. You know, people looking at this UNC game, South Carolina is going to score 40 points, 50 points. I had somebody in our Discord tell me that South Carolina could score 63 points in the game. It's almost as if people have forgotten the question marks on the offensive line. And this only reinforces that, guys. You are undecided at both tackles. Nick Gargiulo, who wasn't on the roster last year, people are touting he's the best offensive line you have. And then Vershawn Lee is at the center spot, who is replacing Eric Douglas from a season ago. If we're going to talk about Georgia and their tackles being a question, when they're replacing those guys with five-star guys, we have to talk about South Carolina's tackles. When you're replacing those guys with a guy in Kason Henry, who I don't know if he's ever even played before, and then Sidney Fugar and Jackson Hughes, who have never played a snap of Power 5 football, or at both tackle spots. That jumped out to me immediately. Sticking with the offensive side, guys, of course, you look at the running back position. As we expected and actually predicted months ago, Dakereon Joyner is listed as RB1 at 6'1", 229 pounds. He's put on some significant weight in the offseason. And Juju McDowell as his backup. I think it's really interesting that Dak Joyner and Juju will get the first crack at that running back rotation. How much of Mario Anderson, the Newberry transfer, do we see? How much of Dontavius Braswell, the true freshman, do we see? I think you're going to see all four play. But Juju McDowell at RB2, can Dakereon Joyner provide that sort of more of a bruiser type of role, right? At 229, he's put on weight. He's shown before the physicality. He's willing to take a hit. He's willing to deliver the blow as well. Can Dakereon Joyner and Juju McDowell be that 1-2 punch we're all hoping for? Or is the running back position on this depth chart, because of course they release it weekly, is it something that changes on a week-in, week-out basis? Very interesting, though, and maybe not surprising, but actually seeing Dakereon Joyner listed as RB1. I mean, you look at it, it's almost surreal. It's really almost surreal to think that Dakereon Joyner is the starting running back at the University of South Carolina going into this season. We shall see how he and Juju fare as the 1-2 punch against UNC. At the quarterback position, of course, guys, no drama around QB1. Spencer Rattler gets that nod, but Luke Doty listed at QB2 on the depth chart. Guys, we've heard a lot about Lenoris Sellers in the offseason and fall camp and how good he's looked, that, you know, he's been running with the twos. He's been taking reps with the twos. I think this is a situation, we talked about this briefly yesterday. I think this is a situation where, is Lenoris Sellers the quarterback of the future? Yes. If something, God forbid, happened with Spencer Rattler early in the season, is Luke Doty going to be the first one that trots out there to take over? Yes, because experience matters in the SEC, guys. Experience matters. And the last thing you want to do, and we've seen it done before at South Carolina, the last thing you want to do is thrust a youngster out there before he's ready, as a true freshman, drinking water out of fire hose. He's never played at this level. I don't care how talented the kid is. It's normally not a good idea to put a true freshman in that spot. I think that's why you see Luke Doty listed at QB2. Does that mean Luke Doty is, all of a sudden going into spring next year, he is, he just slides up one and he's QB1? I don't think that's what that means. And guys, I don't know that you ever see this change throughout the season, because I think what South Carolina is banking on is that QB2 is never going to see significant snaps. QB2 is never going to be in a position to where they're in the ball game, where the game is in doubt, right? The only way QB2 or any backup quarterbacks get in outside of a special package for Lenoris Sellers is if it's a blowout one way or the other. I think that's why, though, you see Luke Doty get that QB2 spot. It's not saying necessarily this is the quarterback of the future, but I think right now, because of experience, if something were to happen, Luke Doty would be that first guy off the bench for South Carolina. Back to the defense we go. As I mentioned, the "or" word is one that's all over South Carolina's depth chart. Both edge spots. And I say edge spots, one of them is outside linebacker, but that's essentially the other edge for South Carolina. And you've got three different players with the "or" included at each edge spot. At one edge, you've got Tyreek Johnson or Jatius Gear or Terrell Dawkins. At the other, you've got Jordan Strawn or Brian Thomas Jr. or Desmond Umeozulu. What that tells me is this. There's a lot of athletes in that room, but right now they still don't know really who their go-to guys are. I think you feel confident at one, that Jordan Strawn spot. I think Strawn has got that locked up. Brian Thomas Jr. was a guy that flashed in the spring game. Can he be an every down contributor in SEC play? We shall see. And then Desmond Umeozulu at 6'6", 246 out of Maryland, somebody we're all really high on. At the other edge spot, Tyreek Johnson, Jatius Gear, who we've all heard, guys, it's under pretty good word that he probably will not play this weekend due to an ankle injury. I'm sure Shane Beamer will update that later today. And then Terrell Dawkins as well, a guy from NC State that he's battled some injuries in the preseason as well. South Carolina has some issues at edge. They've got question marks at the edge spot. What does this mean for a pass rush on Saturday night? You're going to have to get after Drake May. That's something we'll talk a lot about later in the week. Is there enough in that room of those guys I just mentioned? Is there enough of those six? Can you get enough from those six, I should say, to improve in the pass rush department, to assist improving in the running defense? A lot of options there, but who emerges? And also, a name I did not mention that's not on here is the Drew Tuizama kid that comes over from UAB. How does he factor into that room? How much playing time does he see on Saturday night? Moving to the secondary defensively, guys, I thought it was interesting. Keenan Nelson Jr. is listed at the nickel spot starting over David Spalding. This one does not surprise me all that much, because I think if Keenan Nelson Jr., the former four-star prospect from Philadelphia, if he lives up to his ceiling, his potential, I think the high-end talent of Keenan Nelson Jr. is probably greater than that of David Spalding. Either way, South Carolina in a good position there. Keenan Nelson Jr., who played in the bowl game, played a lot late last season. And David Spalding, a guy right behind him. And both guys will play, right? In the secondary especially, you've got guys cycling in all the time. Both guys will play. But you've got a number of quality bodies, right? That's what South Carolina has, quality bodies in the secondary. Keenan Nelson Jr., David Spalding, a pair of good ones at that nickel spot. Also, what jumps out in the secondary, how about at safety? Now, listen, the duo of DQ Smith and Nick Emanwari, this staff, this team, this fan base feels really high on, as they should. What concerns me is depth. If anything goes awry at the safety spot, and you hate to think that way, but guys, this is football. Guys get nicked up. Guys get banged up. It just happens. Your backup safeties. At the free safety, you have Jelon Kilgore, a true freshman we're all really high on. At the strong safety, backing up Nick Emanwari, King Dominion Ford, who just got put on scholarship. No knock on the kid at all, but he just got put on scholarship. That surprised me. That surprised me to see King Dominion Ford as the backup strong safety. Depth is a concern at the safety position. We know that. We know that it is. Got a pair of really good ones, and even Warren and DQ Smith. Beyond that, things start to get a little dicey. And finally, guys, we go to special teams. Again, there's no surprise. Mitch Jeter, your starting kicker. Kai Kroger, your starting punter. Hunter Rogers, your long snapper. Kai Kroger, your holder. Your kickoff returners are Xavier Legette and then Nickerion Joyner or Juju McDowell. No surprise there. Xavier Legette's going to be the feature guy. At punt returner, though, there is a competition. There's a competition at the punt returner spot. Josh Vann was that guy last season. Listed, you have Amarian Brown and Eddie Lewis. There is no or there, but Amarian Brown and Eddie Lewis. And I think this is one that makes a lot of sense. And I'm surprised that it honestly took this long, because you think of the athleticism of Amarian Brown. I mean, a guy that we know is one of the fastest players on this football team. And then Eddie Lewis behind him, who at Memphis was a dynamic special teams player in his own right. I think the punt return game could improve simply because the athleticism is improved. And that's no knock on Josh Vann at all. Great player. I think he did a good job for South Carolina. But I think you can upgrade here. I think this is an upgrade with Amarian Brown, Eddie Lewis, and what they bring from an athleticism standpoint, especially a guy like Eddie Lewis, who has done this before. He's made big plays in the return game. Outside of that, guys, your starting receivers, Juice Wells, Amarian Brown, Xavier Legette. Juice Wells, of course, is speaking to the media as we speak, and I would assume he's ready to go and good to play. Omega Blake listed as Xavier Legette's backup. We've heard he's had a great fall camp. I would expect to see a lot of Omega Blake on Saturday night. Trey Knox and Simon listed at the starting tight ends. Hemingway and Huntley listed at the tackles. Fortune and Dial listed at the starting corner spots. So no real drama on the depth chart outside of what we spoke on, but obviously, as you heard, lots of takeaways on this depth chart, and this is something that there's a lot of ors listed here, a lot of uncertainty. Coaches just put these depth charts out going into week one, sort of because they have to. I would expect this depth chart after week one to be solidified for guys to win jobs on Saturday night against UNC, and expect this depth chart to change drastically from week one to week two. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we're going to keep the conversation rolling here on this Tuesday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle doggy ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in as we keep the conversation rolling. Again, guys, thank you all so much. Just 4 days away until toe meets leather in Charlotte. And also, we're just 2 days away from week one beginning. Florida and Utah in Salt Lake City on Thursday night. I don't know about you all, but I am fired up to watch that game. I am very excited. We'll talk about that certainly later in the week. I think on Thursday we'll do that. We'll do our drive around the SEC, but I am very pumped for that game. I just, there's a lot of uncertainty on both sides. The Vegas line continues to drop in that one. Gators are now less than a touchdown underdog. Who knows? Who knows? They beat them last year, so we'll see what happens. But either way, guys, on the notes of the SEC, we're going to keep the conversation rolling here on this Tuesday. And this is going to be a brand new weekly segment of content that we're going to do every single week, every single Tuesday. We will do this. And you probably saw last week, we dropped our first SEC power rankings heading into week 0. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, our SEC Power Rankings Week 1. And what we'll do is we'll start at the bottom and we'll go all the way. We'll go 14 to 1. And I will give my reasonings behind each of these selections. Now, of course, these are going to change on a weekly basis. And that's what's really going to be the fun part. As we see these teams sort of escalate and decline and go up and down this list, what have you, and to see the rise and fall of some teams is going to be really fun. Either way, SEC Power Rankings. Entering Week 1, we start at number 14, the Vanderbilt Commodores. And guys, this is one that I don't think there's much of a surprise here. I had some folks say, hey, why not put Florida down there? Florida's a team that might only win 3 or 4 games. I know our good friend Jake Crane of Crane and Company, which can't wait to hear his predictions and hear his reasoning behind his predictions on Friday. But either way, he's got the Florida Gators going 3-9, finishing behind Vanderbilt. After watching Vandy against Hawaii, I cannot sit here and say in good confidence, Olive. Sorry, we got the dog doing stuff. I got to start that over. Olive. No. We got the dog chewing on something she wasn't supposed to be chewing on, so I had to stop her there. Either way, we'll get back into this. At number 14, I got the Vanderbilt Commodores. After watching Vandy against Hawaii, I cannot say in good conscience that this is a team that deserves to be any higher. I know there's an argument that Florida, they may only win 3 or 4 games this year. What's Florida going to be? Graham Mertz, this, that, whatever. To me, I got to see more from Vandy until I move them up. I got to see more from Vanderbilt, right? It's one of those things. I'm worried about the offensive line. I'm worried about the secondary. I like A.J. Swan. They've got some individual players that I think you like, but there are some major, major question marks still on Vandy's team. And I'm not sure that win over Hawaii really solved anything. I'm not sure that win over Hawaii really solved anything. For that reason, I've got the Commodores sticking in that number 14 spot. At number 13, I've got just one spot ahead of them, the Florida Gators. Now, there may not be a team in these power rankings that has a greater opportunity to shoot up the power rankings than Florida has in Week 1. Taking on Utah on Thursday night. If they can go into Salt Lake City, if Graham Mertz is somehow better than we expect, and they go on the road and get that win, Florida's a team that I think automatically jumps up at minimum a couple of spots. But coming into the season, what is Graham Mertz going to be? We all saw that spring game, 7-3 or whatever it was. You got Austin Armstrong at defensive coordinator. You've got question marks on defense. Offensively, you lose a ton. You got a great running game for sure, but there are so many questions on Florida's team. There's a reason the Vegas over-under was set at 5.5. I think right now, Florida's got to prove it. They've got to show it. The Graham Mertz pickup in the portal did not impress anyone. What can he do for the Gators? Again, if they can go out against Utah, even if they can compete, even if they can play Utah tight, I think there's an opportunity for Florida to shoot up this list. But right now, I've got the Florida Gators at 13. I've got to see it from Florida. Great opportunity, though, against Utah in Week 1. At number 12, I've got the Auburn Tigers. A lot of uncertainty here as well. First-year coach in Hugh Freeze. I understand what Hugh Freeze has done. I understand what he's done in year 1s, and I get what he's done in the portal, recruiting, all that good stuff. But it's a depth issue. It's a talent issue when it comes to Auburn. And I go back to SEC Media Days, guys, when Hugh Freeze pleaded with his fan base, be patient with us. Be patient with us. I've never gone into a season with more question marks than the season I'm entering right now. Auburn is a team that, again, has a lot of upside. Peyton Thorne has been named starting quarterback. Is he going to hold on to that spot? Robbie Ashford right behind him, waiting in the wings. They've got some nice pieces defensively as well. Take on UMass in Week 1, which we'll talk more about that game here later in the show. Either way, though, I've got Auburn at 12. It's just one of those things, guys, when you have a brand new head coach, first-year head coach, what are you? We just don't know what you are at this point. Again, these rankings will take shape as we go throughout the season. But right now, because of the questions, first-year head coach, even uncertainty at quarterback, I've got Auburn at number 12. At number 11, give me the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Again, another situation. First-year head coach in Zach Arnett. They cruise into the season with a bit of a cupcake game, if you will. Brand new offensive scheme. Do you guys realize Will Rogers has never turned his back to a defense? He's never run play action. He's never been under center. This is something brand new for Will Rogers with an offensive attack. What is he able to do with that? A lot of uncertainty. I like this Mississippi State team, though. A lot of veteran leaders, juniors, seniors, a veteran team. But right now, tons of questions as well. A Mississippi State at 11 for me. At number 10, I've got the Missouri Tigers. It comes back to the quarterback position, Brady Cook. I also just don't trust Eli Drinkwitz. Yes, he's owned South Carolina. He's beaten up the Gamecocks. I totally get that. But outside of that, Jeff Fisher, Eli Drinkwitz, he is the college version of Jeff Fisher. He is the college version of Jeff Fisher in the sense of they go 500 every single season. What is Mizzou able to do? This is a huge year for Eli Drinkwitz. This is a huge year for Missouri football. And this is another team that I think could shoot up the SEC power rankings in the first couple of weeks. They open up with a really soft schedule in the first month or so. First 4 or 5 games. We could be looking at Mizzou 4-0, 5-0, 5-1, something like that. This could be a top 25 team when the Gamecocks go to Como. But right now, Brady Cook, their defense is great. Their defense is elite, one of the best in the SEC. They return over 80% of the production from that unit. But quarterback, offensively, Luther Burton's a nice piece, but are they going to be able to move the football consistently enough? I got Missouri number 10. You guys will disagree with this one. I've already heard it on social media, but at number 9, I've got the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, here is why. South Carolina is yet another team that I think we could see fluctuate. I could see them finishing the season in that 3 or 4 spot in the SEC. Maybe 4 or 5 more realistically, but the ceiling is extremely high. Guys, the floor is also extremely low. South Carolina is one of the greatest mysteries in the SEC bottom line. This is a team I think that could go 5-7. This is a team that could go 9-3. Week 1 will determine a lot. South Carolina could certainly move up this ranking if they're able to take care of the Tar Heels in Charlotte. But when you factor in the question marks, when you factor in the offensive line issues, the defensive line issues, what you lost in the portal, replacing both of your top corners, the inconsistencies of Spencer Rattler, a brand new offensive coordinator that we have no idea if it's going to work. There are real question marks on this football team. And some of these teams ahead of South Carolina, I just feel more confident about that their question marks will be answered. I feel as if there are more solidified answers to their questions than South Carolina has right now. Does not mean I don't have optimism for the Gamecocks. Does not mean, but right around the middle of the pack, right around the middle of this list, I think that's where South Carolina belongs right now. There are many things that could work out in the Gamecocks' favor. There are many things that could go the other way. And as I mentioned to you guys previously, this 2023 team may be better than South Carolina was a season ago, but they've undoubtedly got more question marks. I don't think you can look at this team and say they have less question marks than they had a season ago. This team has more question marks than it had last season. Doesn't mean they won't be better, but they do have more question marks. And I think there are teams ahead of them that I've listed that I feel have less question marks. They have more answers for that reason. I've got South Carolina 9th in my SEC power rankings. At number 8, we go to Oxford. I've got the Ole Miss Rebels. Love Jackson Dart. Love Lane Kiffin. He's an absolute electric factory when it comes to content. Ole Miss is a team I'm feeling better and better about as the offseason goes because I think Jackson Dart has the opportunity with Quinshon Judkins at running back to be a real dude in the SEC this season. They brought in Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State. They brought in Walker Howard from LSU in that quarterback room. And all Jackson Dart has done, it sounds like, it's elevated him to play his best football. I think Ole Miss is a team, they're not going to win the West. They're not going to do anything crazy this season, but I think could be a headache. There'll be a headache for teams to play. Defensively, they're in a transition. Their new defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, I think that's going to be a very, very positive addition. I've heard Cole Kubelik talk about this a lot. They're going to be better solely just from a schematic standpoint. If for nothing else, they'll be better defensively because of that. I think Ole Miss could take a step forward, will take a step forward defensively. That was their Achilles heel last year. And under Lane Kiffin, their brand is offense. They're going to score. They're going to score a lot. They're going to score in bunches. I fully expect Ole Miss to do that yet again. And so right now, because of that, I've got them 8th in my SEC power rankings. At number 7, we're sticking in the SEC West. I've got the Arkansas Razorbacks. Love the duo of KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. It's a pretty good place to start when you've got arguably the best quarterback running back duo in the SEC. I would say probably the best quarterback and running back individually in the SEC. Maybe Quinshon Judkins takes that spot over Rocket Sanders, but KJ Jefferson, of course, we dropped our SEC quarterback power rankings earlier this summer. We had KJ at number 1. So it's a great place to start offensively. Their big question marks at coordinators as well. 2 brand new coordinators on the offensive and defensive side. They've got questions at wide receiver. Who's going to replace their top pass catchers? They lose Trey Knox. Of course, he goes to South Carolina. On the defensive side, they couldn't stop anybody in the secondary a season ago. Still, I like Arkansas. They're another one of these middle-of-pack SEC teams that's somewhat tough to figure out. But I think starting out with KJ, with Rocket on the offensive side, I think that's a great place to start. For now, I'll put them right in the middle, number 7 in our rankings. At number 6, and I know this is where I lose some of you, but as I mentioned to you at SEC Media Days, there were teams that I left feeling more worrisome about and had more question marks about, and there were teams that I left feeling better about and bullish about and stock up on. The Kentucky Wildcats are one of those teams that I feel much better about. I'm high on Kentucky. I've got them at number 6 in the power rankings. Guys, you just look across the board. If you really sit down and you look at what they added offensively, it is remarkable. I mean, this offense should be night and day different from what it was last year. First off, you bring Liam Cohen back to Lexington. The last time he was there, I don't know, they just had one of their best offenses they've ever had. They were as good as anybody. Liam Cohen pushed all the right buttons for Kentucky the last time he was there. You then add Devin Leary from NC State in the transfer portal. Guys, do you realize was hurt last year? Going into last season, there were literally Devin Leary for Heisman campaigns being touted by the NC State fan base. A guy that 2 years ago threw 35 touchdowns, I think to just 7 or 8 interceptions. He was one of the best quarterbacks in college football. You also add Ray Davis, the running back transfer from Vanderbilt. Guys, he rushed for 1,000 yards behind the Vandy offensive line. Dude's a stud. You also add Demi Sumo from NC State, the running back transfer. You add a couple of pieces on the offensive line in the portal. You got a transfer from Alabama, transfer from Southern Cal. That was their Achilles heel last year, the offensive line. I think they've addressed that through their additions in the portal this offseason. And on the defensive side, they're led by Octavius Oxendine up front. They do lose some key contributors defensively, but I trust the Mark Stoops brand of football, which I think they get back to, which is just hard-nosed, physicality, toughness, and now they've got the offense to complement it. And the reason I feel confident in Kentucky is this. Defense wasn't their problem last year. It was the offensive line and the offense. Their trademark, their bread and butter under Mark Stoops has been the offensive line. There is no way Kentucky is that bad on the offensive line back-to-back seasons. It'd be one thing if they had struggled on the offensive line his entire tenure, but they haven't, guys, and we got a decade sample size to look at. I think the offensive line's much improved. And oh, by the way, I didn't even mention this. Their crop of wide receivers, it's the best group of wide receivers that Kentucky maybe has ever had. Barian Brown, Dane Key, those dudes lead the way as good as they were last year. Kentucky's going to have a really good offense. They'll have a stingy defense to go with it. I've got them 6th in my power rankings. At number 5, and again, this is one, here's what you have to do, guys, when you do preseason rankings, when you do these power rankings. I'm not really factoring in a whole lot what happened last year, right? I'm just not, like, what's about to kick off in week 1, what did kick off in week 0, it's not a continuation of last season. I think that's where people really get confused and get twisted. And, like, I mean, even with South Carolina, like, week 1 is not going to be a continuation of what happened last year. This is a brand new team in a lot of situations. There are brand new coaches. I mean, it's completely different. You have to remove and put behind you what happened last year. Example, for South Carolina, 63 points against Tennessee, that was last year. Doesn't matter anymore. 5-7 for A&M last year. Doesn't matter anymore. Now, trends can tell you something. Trends can help you decipher what a team is. But I'm not looking at Texas A&M and saying, okay, they went 5-7 last year. They're just going to continue down that path. They very well may do so. Jimbo Fisher may be the biggest bum in college football, and they fire him after the season. When you look at Texas A&M, man, when you look at that roster, you add Bobby Petrino at OC, there is no excuse for this program not to win at minimum 8 games this season. I'd say maybe even 9. When you look at the way they recruited, when you look at the talent, they've got one of the best defensive lines, if not the best. I'd say one of the best in the SEC. Let's give some respect to Georgia. They've got dudes across the board. And I like Texas A&M in the SEC West this year. I've got them beating Alabama. I've got them as a 9-win team. For that reason, again, and more, I think the talent, I think the addition of Bobby Petrino will be a positive one. We're going to be talking a lot about Petrino. Fisher, can he take his hands off the steering wheel? I think he has to. If he can do that, they're going to be fine. Connor Wegman at quarterback, I think there's not a quarterback in the SEC that could shoot up rankings, could shoot up SEC power rankings amongst quarterbacks more than Connor Wegman this season. I've got Texas A&M 5th in my power rankings entering week 1. At number 4, the Tennessee Volunteers. Question marks at quarterback with Joe Milton. There may not be a more fascinating player in the SEC at that position than Joe Milton, because can you really expect Joe Milton and these new pieces to be as good as that offense was last year? I don't think you can. Hendon Hooker was historically good at Tennessee. But with that being said, people act like that it means they're going to fall off a cliff and score 20 points a game. They're still going to be one of the best offenses in the SEC, guys. It's the brand of Josh Heupel, the offensive brand. They're going to score. They're going to score often. They're going to score a lot of points this season. You're going to see it this weekend against the Virginia Cavaliers. You're going to see it all season long. Can Joe Milton throw the changeup? We've heard that all offseason. He's heard it. I'm sure that's something he's worked on in his game. You got to replace Jalen Hyatt. You got to replace Cedric Tillman. I get that. You got Squirrel White to the outside. Brew McCoy is back. They feel good about their running back position as well. From all accounts, by all things we've heard, the defense is going to be much improved from last season as well. I don't think Tennessee is going to be quite as good maybe as they were last year, but going in the season, I still right now, until proven otherwise, I still view Tennessee as the 4th best team in the SEC. And maybe somebody else takes that throne. Maybe it's an A&M. Maybe it's a Kentucky. Maybe it's a South Carolina. Maybe somebody else jumps up and knocks Tennessee off that pedestal. But, guys, right now, I've got Tennessee 2nd in the East. I've got them the 4th best team in the SEC. I think offensively, they will continue to score. They will continue to score at a high level. I don't know that Joe Milton's going to be as good as Hendon Hooker. He doesn't have to be, guys, for them to be really good offensively and defensively. I think Tennessee's going to take a step forward. Not saying they're going to be great, but I think they'll be better than last year, and that was a team that, again, won 11 games. So Tennessee, for me, 4th in the SEC power rankings. At number 3, I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide. And listen, I know this is something that some of you, Josh Pate's picking Alabama to win the national championship, win the SEC, of course. I got to find out who's playing quarterback, man. Nick Saban, for the first time in his Alabama tenure, did not release a depth chart. What does it mean? Does it mean anything? For the first time ever, Nick Saban does not release a depth chart. I think it's Jalen Milroe out the gate. Will it be Jalen Milroe midseason? By the second or third game, will it be Jalen? Is it Ty Simpson? Is it Buckner? We know nothing more about Bama's quarterback competition right now than we did at SEC Media Days. How is that possible? Alabama's still loaded. They got one of the best rosters in college football. Nobody's denying that. But in the SEC, the two teams ahead of them have less question marks. And you're going to have a hard time convincing me that Alabama is going to get better after losing the number 1 and number 3 overall draft picks. They couldn't win the SEC West last year with Bryce Young and with Will Anderson. They might be better. They might improve. They might get back to bully ball. Why couldn't they do that last year? The offensive line wasn't very good. Why couldn't they do that last year? Alabama's still one of the best rosters in the conference, and they very well may win the West. But right now, I got them third in my power rankings. At number 2, the team that I think will win the SEC West, the LSU Tigers. Loaded across the board. Starting with Jalen Daniels at quarterback. You know, they added Logan Diggs in the portal. They got one of the best wide receivers, if not the best in the SEC, right up there with Juice Wells, Malik Neighbors on the outside. They do lose Mason Smith, of course, defensively for that week 1 game against Florida State, but you got Mekhi Wingo right there next to him. You've got Harold Perkins, who might be the best defensive player in college football. Secondary's a question mark. But LSU, to me, they are loaded across the board. I like Jalen Daniels a lot. He was on my all-SEC team. I believe I listed him second team preseason all-SEC. I think he takes a major step forward this year. LSU number 2 in my power rankings. And again, guys, they're my pick for the SEC West this season. We shall see how that plays out. But LSU right now going into the season at number 2. And at number 1 in our SEC power rankings for week 1, it's no surprise, guys, the Georgia Bulldogs. Until proven otherwise, Georgia is at the top of the mountain. Back-to-back national champions. I understand they got a new OC in Mike Bobo. They replaced both of their starting tackles. And they got a new quarterback in Carson Beck. Defensively, they replaced some pieces, but the way that Kirby Smart has built this program, it's a reload situation in Athens. I mean, you'll find few, I think, that are picking Georgia to even lose a game this season. I think there's only one game on the schedule Georgia's going to be a single-digit favorite in, and that's the game at Tennessee. And by then, who knows what the spread will be. Georgia's the undisputed champion, back-to-back national champions. It's going to take them losing that spot or somebody just knocking them off for them to fall from number 1. And I don't think that's even up for debate or discussion. So again, guys, that's our SEC power rankings entering week 1. What are your thoughts? How would you rank these teams entering week 1 of the 2023 college football season? Guys, we're going to jump into another quick break. On the other side, we'll get into my favorite bets of the weekend. Very excited to throw some money around and to beat the bookie yet again, guys. All that and more on the side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars, That's Carolina Cigars. And there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Do not forget, we got my good friend J.C. Sherbert of the Big Spur. He will join us at 1:15. Full breakdown of everything going into Saturday's game against North Carolina. Really excited. Gamecocks and Tar Heels as we shoot J.C. Sherbert the meeting link. Of course, Shane Beamer speaking today at 1:30, guys. If you want to tune into that, you can come right back for the Q&A Power Hour in hour number 3. But in the meantime, and normally what we'll do is this. Normally on Tuesdays, we're going to talk gambling. My bookie bet to the weekend. We're going to talk Prize Picks plays as well. I was talking to our folks at Prize Picks, though. They will not have any plays for this college football weekend until Thursday. And I reached out and asked, why is that? Why do you not have the plays up yet? It's because they said, hey, we just don't know exactly who starters are, and we're trying to put out props, and individual players are kind of tough to determine. So They are going to put out players by Thursday, so we'll talk Prize Picks plays later in the week. But for today, guys, MyBookie, of course, our sponsor. Check them out. Our MyBookie bets of the weekend. And the biggest difference from last season and years prior is this. Before I would do SEC gambling picks, right? And it was just a pick of every single game. Well, if you're actually playing the picks, you're probably not going to play every single SEC game because there are games that just don't make sense to bet on. So, with that being said, we'll probably have about 5 or 6 bets each and every single weekend. And these are my favorite bets going into week 1 of the college football season. We start Minnesota -7 against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And guys, admittedly, hey, there will be some picks that I have these long, drawn-out reasons for. Here's a bunch of trends. Here's these teams. But any team that Marcus Satterfield is the offensive coordinator for, I'm betting against. It does not matter to me. The over-under in this game is like 46. That might be too high. I like what PJ Fleck is doing at Minnesota. I'm not saying they're a great team by any stretch. Game 1, though, of Matt Rule, I like Minnesota to cover the touchdown. I think they are going to blow the doors off of Nebraska. That Nebraska offense, Cornhusker fans, buckle up. You are going to find out the hard way why South Carolina fans rejoiced when Satterfield was let go and, of course, eventually went to Nebraska. Minnesota -7. Lock it in. Love the pick. We go to the SEC. And outside of a couple of games, it feels like a bit of a cupcake weekend of the SEC. I mentioned Kentucky in our SEC power rankings. I think they open up this season in a big way. Give me Kentucky minus the 26.5 against Ball State. This is a Ball State team that Tennessee last year beat by a final score of 59-10. They do have a nice quarterback on their team. They've improved offensively, but I like Kentucky again at home, opening up in a big way. I think Devin Leary and company, Liam Cohen, I think the offensive line. I think this entire team, I think game 1 for Kentucky, they're going to want to flex and show the improvements they've made offensively and defensively. I think they'll be stingy as well. I love the Wildcats in the blowout. Give me Kentucky minus 26.5 in this game. It's a big number, but I like UK to get it done. I then like the over 56 in Tennessee and Virginia. Yes, I know Virginia last season offensively, they were solid. Tennessee with question marks, Joe Milton. Guys, if there's one thing you can bank on when Tennessee plays a football game, it's points. It's points, it's points, it's points. It's scoring lots of points. Tennessee might hit 56 by themselves. Really, truly. They might hit 50 by themselves. I don't think Tennessee will have much of an issue moving the football. I think both these teams, and I don't trust Tennessee's defense quite yet, right? Virginia, not a very good team. They were not very good last year, but I think that this game will be high scoring. I could see a score like 48-20, something like that. I think they go over the total, over 56. Lots of points, lots of points, lots of points. Give me all the points in Tennessee and Virginia. This one right here is one of my favorite plays of the weekend. To the SEC we stay, which a lot of these picks, by the way, guys, on a weekly basis, just side note, they're going to be SEC picks because that's the college football that we're familiar with. Either way, first game for Hugh Freeze on the Plains, Peyton Thorne starting quarterback. Auburn's going to win, don't get me wrong, but UMass plus 35. 35, I think, is way too much. 35, I think this number even was at 38 at one point. I like UMass plus 35. I really do. You look at their quarterback, they've got the transfer from Clemson and Georgia Tech, I believe it is. I don't know how to say his name, but they looked good in week 1, beating New Mexico State, I think it was, in their week 1 opener. UMass plus 35. I don't think they're going to beat Auburn. Auburn's going to win the football game, but I think it'll be much closer than a 5-touchdown victory. First game of a new head coach. I know Auburn wants to make a splash, but I got UMass. I love UMass covering the 35. Plus 35, give me the Minutemen. To Charlotte, North Carolina we go. And this is one, guys, I've talked about a lot. I'm going against the public here. And I would say, many folks have said, hey, best bets, South Carolina plus 2.5. If you're going to take the Gamecocks plus 2.5, guys, here's a tip. Just take the money line. Just take the money line. The total in this game is fascinating. It started out earlier in the summer at like 59 or 60. It has since jumped up to 64. I've even seen it at 64.5. It's 64 over at MyBookie. Hammer, and I mean hammer, the under in this game. That's going against everybody else, basically. Everybody else you hear, oh, the over, this is going to be a 48-45 kind of game. No defense at all. Here's the way I look at this. And these two teams, guys, are eerily similar to each other, right? You've got a pair of very inconsistent quarterbacks who, when they play their best, hey, this over-under will be smashed. The over will hit with ease. But can we guarantee we'll get the best version of both of these guys? Spencer Rattler, the first 10 games of last year, was abysmal. And Drake May, the end of last season, was not very good. Both have very high ceilings, but their floors are questionable. You then look at the offensive line of both sides, right? Very shoddy offensive line. South Carolina, I mean, it's not a given they're going to get any sort of a run push and pass protection with the quarterback. UNC, same thing. They got just as many, if not more, question marks than South Carolina does in the trenches. Who's going to play running back for both sides? Questions in the running game are severe. You got a pair of new offensive coordinators. Phil Longo over at UNC and Dabble Loggins over at South Carolina. Excuse me, actually, it's Chip Lindsey at UNC. Phil Longo is the guy who left for Wisconsin. A pair of new offensive coordinators. Game one for these guys. Des Walker for UNC, their best playmaker. Looks like he probably will not play. NCAA not going to grant his eligibility. And on South Carolina's side, Juice Wells, who, by all accounts, it sounds like he's playing, but is he 100%? Is he the Juice Wells that we all know and love? A lot of uncertainty there. And outside of him, a lot of names, but how many proven weapons are there for Spencer Rattler at his disposal? Not a whole lot. I also trust South Carolina's defense. I just don't see this being a game in which it's 48-38 or 42-30. I just don't see that in game one. And guys, you're telling me over under at 64, a 35-28 score hits the under. You're telling me you're going to give me 9 touchdowns, 9 total touchdowns, with an accelerated clock also, by the way. Continuous clock, right? Clock's going to be running all game except 2 minutes or less and a half. Clock does not stop at the first downs anymore. You're telling me there's going to be more than 9 total touchdowns in this game? I just don't see it, guys. I don't see it. I think this is one of the easiest plays of the weekend. I love the under. I think this game, because of all the factors I mentioned with both offenses, right? Defenses are normally at this point ahead of the offenses. There's major question marks on both lines of scrimmage, 2 inconsistent quarterbacks, 2 brand new offensive coordinators, game one in prime time. The adrenaline's pumping. The butterflies are there. Don't be surprised if this game's 14-10 at halftime. Do not be surprised. Even if it's 17-14 at half, guys, we're trending for the under. I love the under 64. I'm not convinced like some that South Carolina is all of a sudden some offensive juggernaut because they hired Dabble Loggins, a guy who's never called a play at college football. And then Drake May and UNC, they're going to see physicality up front on both sides they don't get in the ACC. And we saw how he played into last year. I don't think it's going to be a 17-14 final score, but you're giving me 9 touchdowns. You're giving me 64. I love the under in that ball game. Finally, guys, LSU and Florida State on Monday night. Under 58. I love the under in this game as well. Under 58. I think this is a good old-fashioned slugfest. I like both offenses. Don't get me wrong. Jaden Daniels, Jordan Travis, what have you. But again, game one jitters. I think these teams, defenses ahead of the offenses, I think they could both sputter out of the gate offensively. I think it's going to be a classic, by the way. Great back-and-forth ball game. Both these teams have high-end talent defensively. You look at LSU in the front seven. Yes, there's questions in the secondary. And then Florida State, they've upgraded across the board as well. I like the under on Monday night on Labor Day, under 58. So again, guys, my bets of the weekend, Minnesota -7, Kentucky -26.5, UT and Virginia over 56, UMass +35, South Carolina, North Carolina under 64, and LSU, Florida State under 58. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we got my good friend JC Sherbert of the Big Spur jumping on. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. It's game week, South Carolina and North Carolina in Charlotte. Saturday night as the 2023 season finally gets underway. College game day will be on the scene as well at Romar Bearden Park, just outside of Bank of America Stadium. Very excited to bring him on every single Tuesday. Does a fantastic job with Inside the Gamecocks. Of course, we join his show every Thursday, but he joins us here on this Tuesday. Our good friend JC Sherbert of the Big Spur. He joins us once again. JC, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Hey, great to be with you, Chris. Looking forward to seeing some of those Beamer ball towels that tend to pop up when we have a game day or something like that you've spread all out there. So that'll be good. And my goodness, my visor has some dog hair on it, so I'm kind of embarrassed by that. You give me the ultra close up here, Chris. So anyway, but looking forward to the game. Looking forward to the atmosphere. I think it's big that game day is going to be there. This is really the showcase game on Saturday, Chris. I think Florida State LSU obviously is the biggest game of the weekend, but this one on Saturday, because that one's on Sunday, this one's going to take the spotlight. So I'm fired up about being a part of it, flying down to Charlotte Wednesday night and with my fiance, and have a lot of people expected for a Carolina Rise tailgate event Saturday, and going to have fun with that, and then go in the stadium and hopefully watch a good football game.
Yeah, JC, anytime you get college game day, it's a big one. You mentioned that Carolina Rise tailgate event. You want to let the people know exactly where that is, details, how to
sure.
I guess you got to buy tickets, whatever it might be.
It's sold out, and it's
okay.
I've noticed that let's just say it surpassed my expectations, and it's growing. But I think if you're in one of those lots off of Stadium View Drive, you're going to be able to notice it. And obviously, I don't put up barbed wire and things like that around the lots or anything. But, if you want the food or the drink, you're probably going to have to share your ticket. But certainly looking forward to that. Like I said, the response has been tremendous for that. And I just want to thank everybody out there that supports Carolina Rise, and encourage those that don't to do, because, the Gamecocks need the money. So that's the bottom line on that. But yeah, looking forward to that. Really looking forward to just hanging out with Gamecock fans in Charlotte. I stay, I live in Columbia part of the time now. So I do get to interact more with my people, so to speak, more than I did. But certainly is always great when everybody's there together, and the renewal feeling of the start of a new season. Plus, the weather's not supposed to be that bad. It's supposed to be in the low to mid 80s. So lucking out weather-wise for the season opener.
JC, I'm excited. Our first game week show of the 2023 season, my friend. I am elated. Let's get into it, man. The status of South Carolina's football team. Obviously, Juice Wells is speaking to the media today, so that would tell you, I think it's safe to say, he is going to play or is expected to play on Saturday. I know you and I haven't spoken in a while. What can you tell us the latest on the status of this football team? The injury front, has anything new popped up in fall camp? I know obviously this team is now in their UNC prep, but has anything jumped out to you over the last, say, week and a half that maybe was not the case just 2 weeks or so ago?
Injury-wise, nothing, Chris. And that's not to say something may not pop up, because Lord knows we know how that goes. But I think right now, outside of JT Gear is Gear. I've heard three different things. Gear, the transfer from Syracuse, from Belton Honeypath, and it's a real shame if he doesn't play, because he had a tremendous camp up until getting injured in the second scrimmage. Other than that, I'm pretty confident everybody that everybody's been talking about is going to play, and that means Trey Knox. Trey Knox really, honestly, has been back at practice full go for 2 weeks, so that's a non-issue. I do think Juice Wells will play. I think Nick Harbor will. Will Nick Harbor play? I think he'll dress out. How much he plays is probably going to be more of a function of the game itself and missed practice time for a freshman, things like that. So, I expect all those guys to go. Gear's the one I'm kind of iffy about. Ryan Brubaker, who I see for some reason I get asked about him. Doesn't matter what show I'm on, what website, Twitter, wherever. He's out. He's been out for a while, and I don't know what his long-term prognosis is, but he's going to be out for a while. So no Ryan Brubaker. Get that out of your head. I think people were surprised he wasn't on the 2 deep. But other than that, Chris, hey, I think the injury situation is probably about as good as you can expect coming out of a physical fall camp and all that. And I do think some of these guys that have been sidelined or that, they held out. It was a lot of it's for precautionary reasons because you don't want a minor injury to become major and cut into your game playing time. If you have to shut a guy down for a couple of weeks, he's close to 100% by the opener. You do it. Depth has always been an issue at South Carolina. They haven't quite yet recruited to the point where it's the next man up and they'll be fine at all spots. And so I think Coach Beamer and his staff have done a good job of, sort of taking precautions during practice and saying, okay, practice is great and all. Everybody needs practice. We know that, but let's not be dumb and force a guy back early to where he won't be ready to go for the game.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the depth chart, JC, you mentioned that. Anything surprise you? Jump out to you from the depth chart? First thing for me, first glance, I thought Debo Williams over Mo Kaba at weak side linebacker was interesting. A lot of Orr, of course, on the first depth chart, or at both offensive tackle spots. Of course, DeCabrion Joyner, RB1, Juju behind him. A lot of Orrs at the edge, and the other edge or outside linebacker spot with Strawn and Tyreek Johnson looks like being the lead guys. But anything specifically jump out to you, surprise you, or you think is intriguing going into the season opener?
There were some slight surprises with the linebackers. I was kind of surprised because Mo was a Mike, right? He was the starting Mike last year before he got hurt, and then Green came back. Well, now Mo's at will. Mo also is up to 253 pounds. I know that when you just the small sample size we have of Clayton White here, Brad Johnson was at that position. So he likes those bigger will linebackers. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I'm thinking Pup Howard would play over there, but no, he's at Mike behind Stone Blanton. And then you have Debo over there as the starter. With Mo, and maybe it's not that he wants bigger. Maybe he just wants like a pass rushing type because he sends the will linebacker a lot and blitzing and things like that. So that was somewhat of a surprise how that stacked up. A slight surprise maybe was seeing Case and Henry and Tyson Wanamaker as co-starters at one tackle because I thought Fugar and Jackson Hughes would be the two guys that were, and then those other two would be behind them. That should make people feel good because Case and Henry's a guy that I've been told great things about since he stepped on campus. He's just been hurt. So maybe he's snapping out of it. Wanamaker, who started a bunch around here, he almost lost too much weight, Chris, and had to kind of build his way back and kind of get his fire back a little bit and stuff like that. But I was told by a contact a week and a half ago that, hey, Tyshawn's coming back and being the old Tyshawn again. And so that's positive because I think that's a guy that's played a lot of football at that position that you can kind of feel comfortable with out there. So I thought that was sort of interesting. Keenan Nelson over David Spalding at nickel. Now, I know David's been, again, banged up, coming off an injury, off all that kind of stuff. So I wonder how much of that was because of Spalding's injury, how much of it was because of Nelson's performance, but also how much of it is, well, hey, they're going to use Spalding as kind of a jack of all trades and play him some at safety as well because you have King Demarion Ford listed as a reserve safety, as a number 2 safety. Is that an interchangeable type of thing? Nothing against Ford. I've always thought he was good enough to make some noise here as a walk-on. And, of course, he got awarded a scholarship, the Stephen Panis scholarship the other day. My question becomes, where's Peyton Williams? Where's some of the younger safeties How do they shake out here? So that was a surprise. Judge Collier at the backing up at corner is going to be a surprise for some folks. It's not to me because I was told that kid was going to probably be in the 2 deep for a while. And then other than that, you can split hairs and say, well, Nick Harbor behind Juice Wells at the X or whatever receiver position that is. But like Hale McGranahan was saying earlier today on our show, I seriously doubt that when they put Nick Harbor in, they'll take Juice Wells off the field, that kind of thing. And Omega Blake's been working over there behind you. So maybe some gamesmanship there from Dowell Loggins and all that. Not surprised Luke Doty's QB too. But if something happened long term to Spencer Rattler, I don't know that it would just be Luke's show. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. JC, let's talk about the actual game on Saturday. First time we've done this in quite a while, my friend, breaking down a game on the field of play, but that's exactly what will happen 4 days from now. We'll start when North Carolina has the ball. How do you see South Carolina attacking UNC defensively, and what should they do? Because, of course, you look at UNC last season. They were fantastic start of the year, struggled down the stretch, but the bottom line was this: Drake May, 2022 ACC Player of the Year. He's being regarded as one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best in all of college football. And he's got some weapons to throw to. Of course, one of the biggest storylines going into Saturday, the status of Tez Walker. Is the NCAA going to allow him to play? But even if he doesn't, you look at J.J. Jones, Kobe Paysour, Nate McCullum, the Georgia Tech transfer. They also love their tight end room with John Copenhaver, Kamari Morales, Bryson Nesbitt, and running back a question for them. But a lot of options there. And then offensive line, similar to the Gamecocks, JC. They've got some questions up front as well. But obviously, it's a lethal offense. It's one of the better offensive attacks you'll probably see. One of the better quarterbacks, I'd say, you'll probably face in this season. What do you think are keys for South Carolina? What must they do to slow down this Tar Heel offensive attack?
I think you got to limit the damage on the ground. People, it kind of gets lost on people. Phil Longo is now at Wisconsin, so it's a different scheme. Chip Lindsey's from the Malzahn tree, so you have to wonder, how much of Gus's attack really does he run? I've seen Rhett Lashley coach before. He's from the Malzahn tree, and he does some things different. I mean, it's we'll see what happens. I mean, are you going to get Jim? Are you going to get Drake May out there and play him like he's Nick Marshall? I don't know. I do expect some spread and some tempo. I think for the Gamecocks, what you have to do is don't let them crease you, don't let them gash you, don't let them run all over you. North Carolina probably does not have the push up front to do that, but if they do establish the run, and Omarion Hampton is a really good young back. British Brooks actually is returning after a year off. He's the one that made the big long run against the Gamecocks in the Mayo Bowl a couple of years. Probably North Carolina's best play all day, and that kid's fast. They've got some depth there, even if they haven't piled up the stats. They have capable receivers. A lot of them are young. Christian Hamilton is a guy that's a freshman I'm looking forward to seeing. And then you mentioned Copenhaver at tight end, who I think is really, really good. And, of course, Jamar Nesbitt's son is a big tight end for them, too, that's got a lot of athletic ability. So I think the Gamecocks have to tackle well, stay in their gap, don't let Drake May break contain. Get him on the ground when you got a shot at him. And I think South Carolina's secondary matches up really well, even if Tez Walker plays. I think the Gamecocks have a lot of talent back there on the back end to, I guess, limit excuse me. God, that snuck up on me. Limit North Carolina in the passing game moving forward. And, and a lot of that also depends on, can you get a pass rush? And, with Jordan Strawn, Brian Thomas Jr., they say Tyreek Johnson's had a really good, preseason. But maybe they can. But I think you got to just make sure that you contain, because I could see a scenario where if they're hitting the edges, Chris, and getting 10, 15 yards, everybody's getting sucked inside and bounce out. I mean, that's a nightmare, because then what that does is everybody's kind of worried about that, and you fall for the eye candy, and then boop, touchdown over the top. I mean, that's kind of how I think this North Carolina offense is going to work. So, just fundamentally sound football, play tough, dominate when you can. I mean, let's be honest, Jordan Strawn versus whoever North Carolina rolls out there at offensive tackle, that's an athletic mismatch. Jordan Strawn can really take it to them. So, I mean, just like the Mayo Bowl a few years ago. So, that's going to be the key. I think having results like the Mayo Bowl a few years ago is probably what you want, because, they said they held Sam Howell in check pretty good in that game as far as running on them and things like that. Although this is a different scheme that I think will give, more of that Malzahn style eye candy and stuff. So you got to be disciplined.
Yeah, JC, I was going to say, I feel like the edge position might be the most important on Saturday night, because they're really going to be stressed and tested. And I mean, getting pressure on Drake May, it goes without saying. I mean, you mentioned the containment, because people don't realize he can beat you with his legs too. And he's also a guy that, I mean, as we know, he has time to throw. He's going to make any defense pay. And so, we're going to learn a lot about the defense, man. I think it's just interesting that, everybody's expecting this crazy shootout. Everybody's saying, take the over. I just wonder how that plays into maybe the chip on the shoulder of these defensive guys going into Saturday night.
Oh, yeah, because they've read it. I don't know why you pick a shootout. I mean, I just, I look at the personnel and, I don't know. I look, South Carolina's got depth at D tackle. Are they basing that on losing Jordan Burch and Gilbert Edmond? Did they watch those guys play last year? I mean, they're pretty average guys. Jordan has scored the 5 stars by his name, and Gilbert had the 2, but they're about kind of the same. And what are you basing the fact that North Carolina, with no proven receiver threat, with a good stable of backs, but not one that not anybody that's proven, although I'd watch out for Amarian Hampton now. And Brooks is fast. And then questions on the offensive line. Are they just basing that like Drake May by himself is going to just light up this defense that has, a returning freshman All-American at safety, another promising sophomore to the other safety, like 2 veterans at corner, their best pass rushers back from last year, coming off injury, really good linebackers that have come into their own. I don't know what they're basing that off of as far as North Carolina lighting up. Now, will South Carolina light up North Carolina's defense? I don't know, but I think some of the shootout talk is maybe what people are projecting in their minds, because they see a quarterback battle, and that's how neutrally they'd love for it to go down.
JC, speaking of the offense, let's move and talk to when the Gamecocks have the football. I don't know if if I can recall an offensive coordinator ever having more pressure in week 1 than Dowell Loggins has going into this. Based off of the commentary that I've seen on social media, the chatter that I've heard. Again, is that internal, external, doesn't matter. I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure for this offense to produce at a high level. Spencer Rattler going up against, and you're facing, JC, a UNC defense that was abysmal last year. I mean, they couldn't stop anybody. Run, pass, whatever you want, you could have it. Your thoughts, and again, expectations for South Carolina. I mean, we're all going to learn watching Saturday night, right? Because I don't think we really know right now exactly what the offense is going to look like. What we're hoping is it's going to look more like what you saw against Tennessee, Clemson, and Notre Dame versus the first 10 games. Is it somewhere in the middle? Again, UNC's got some nice pieces defensively. I mean, it's not a complete lost cause. Cedric Gray at linebacker. I know the Huzzy kid on the outside at corner they really like, but it feels like, JC, this is a matchup, especially now that we know Juice Wells is going to play. Spencer Rattler, of course, is your quarterback. This feels like a matchup South Carolina should be able to have success. What say you going to this one, and what exactly are you looking for on Saturday?
Yeah, as far as Dowell Loggins, I don't know that he's feeling any pressure himself. I mean, the guy, it's a pressure cooker to call plays in the NFL, but I do think there's somewhat of a lot of doubt on the part of the Gamecock fan base with this. And I mean, look, I even talked to people that shouldn't, that I thought had come around on it that are still like, oh, I just don't know. So, I think but I think it sets up well. I think it sets up like for a perfect game. No, and keep in mind it's not going to be perfect. No season opener is. No football game is. So Carolina goes out there and goes 3-and-out. Don't start trashing Dowell Loggins, just yet. So I think because things happen, but I do think it's a tremendous opportunity in the vertical passing game. I think in the passing game in general, Chris, Carolina's got a really good advantage, and I even think on the lines of scrimmage, if Miles Murphy and Desmond Evans, all those guys, if they've come, a million miles from last year and, are starting to reach that high potential that as recruits, maybe it's a different looking defense. I like the transfers they've gotten on the back end, but, are they going to be able to gel? And then there's the unknown. Mac Brown said today, he doesn't know what to expect from Dowell Loggins. He's like, we're going to spend the first quarter trying to feeling some things out. So, who knows? Who knows what'll happen there? But I do think, when you kind of envision how South Carolina could win this game, you kind of start thinking about Spencer Rattler and the passing game and the Gamecocks taking advantage of a North Carolina defense that maybe improved, but probably still in what you would call, a dominant unit.
JC, you and I both know season openers can always be really tricky. I mean, you look over the history of South Carolina, they've won most of them, but normally like some weird things happen, right? It's never really what you expect. I remember during the Steve Spurrier era, I mean, there were some games I'll never forget. I think it was 2007. The season opener, Gamecocks give up like 260 yards rushing to Louisiana Lafayette. The next week they turn around, they go beat Georgia. Go figure it out, right? So it's an opportunity because, Shane Beamer's mentioned this. There's no preseason game. There's no scrimmage. You know nothing about your football team. That's why they always say the greatest improvements from week 1 to week 2 because you have film to look at. You have real tangible things you can say, okay, we got to fix this, do this, improve this. When you look at this week 1 matchup, is there a key to this game and or a key matchup that you're looking at that you think will define who finds victory?
Yeah, I think it's South Carolina run defense versus North Carolina rush offense. I think that run defense has been such a bugaboo for the Gamecocks. You look at North Carolina, they're not what I would call an elite offensive line. Guys like Boogie Huntley and Taka Hemingway and Jordan Strawn and TJ Sanders and Nick Barrett and Brian Thomas and Tyreek Johnson, they've been at this school for a long, long time. There's no excuse not to win a lot of battles up front in this one if you're the Gamecocks, period. End of discussion. And I think that when you can win that battle up front on defense, on the line of scrimmage, then that helps you stop the run better. I mean, linebackers have a part to play in it. Secondary does too, but when you're getting the best of them up front, that's a tell sign. And I think there's no reason why the Gamecocks can't. Will North Carolina break some runs here and there? Will they get rushing yards? Yeah, they're going to be a pretty good rushing offense this year. And then, you got to worry about Drake May beating you with his legs and stuff. But keeping them from running the ball will make them one-dimensional and will make them rely on, not just May, but a lot of very green young wide receivers that haven't produced a lot. And so you start thinking about that and you're like, well, the Gamecocks have some veterans on the back end that could probably handle it. And you like Carolina's chances. But that's if North Carolina starts running the ball and Hampton and British Brown start getting loose and then May's able to run it and they're chewing up yards, Chris, that's going to open things up downfield. It's going to make Drake May's life a lot easier. And then that's when I think you can get in a shootout or possibly get beat in the ball game.
JC, I've been really surprised to a degree this week with some of the predictions I've seen from Gamecock Nation. I don't know. Maybe it's just the preseason optimism and the hype train reaches an all-time high when you get to game week. But people that think this is going to be a 21, 24, 28 or more point margin of victory, JC, I think these two teams are mirror images of each other. I really do. I think that There are so many, it's almost eerie to a degree how many similarities. Now, do I think the Gamecocks top to bottom are more talented? I absolutely do think so. But I think this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight, back and forth. I mean, it's going to be one of the best games, if not the best game of the weekend. And, JC, I know it's Tuesday. Last year, you and I spoke on Thursday, so you were locking in predictions. You don't have to do so, but if you want to, you can. And just how do you think this one's going to go? To your point earlier, by the way, JC, I think the under 64 in this game, I think it's one of the best bets of the weekend. Because to your point, 2 brand new OCs, 2 questionable offensive lines, 2 quarterbacks that at times can be inconsistent. And if you're telling me you're giving me 9 total touchdowns between these 2 teams, I'm taking it, man. In a season opener too, where it's like defenses ahead of offenses, you don't really even know what you have yet. I think the under is one of the easiest plays of the weekend. Your thoughts on the game? And again, if you want to give a prediction, you can. Obviously, don't have to, but just overall thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, I think South Carolina wins like 35-20, and I'm with you on the under. I would jump on that. I think that there's a lot of people underestimating the Gamecocks defense, and because there are some guys that we all cover, and we know that Debo Williams will knock you into next week, for example. And we know that if he ever figured it out and the light came on as far as reading his keys and stuff, he'd be a great linebacker. Well, nobody else knows that. Nobody else knows who Stone Blanton is except he's some 4-star kid from Mississippi. O'Donnell Fortune and Marcellus Dial had their moments last year, but you look and you go, oh, my God, they lost 2 top 3 round draft picks at corner. And then Emmett Warray and DQ Smith, I think this year will get their due. And so that you kind of look at it, and there are some unknown names, but then there are guys that you and I and people that know that, like, okay, well, this was close. So I think the Gamecock defense will be better than people think. I'm not sold on the Chip Lindsey style of offense being an improvement over what Phil Longo did, but I do know that if Chip Lindsey can chew clock and run the quarterback and put all that eye candy up and confuse you and bust big plays in the run game, he will. So there's that. And then I think South Carolina's going to have a steady good night, Rattler in the passing game, all that, a steady good night, maybe, dare I say, methodical, where they're efficient and they score, a lot of, they score points. That was 35 points is 5 touchdowns. It won't be perfect, but I do think that they have a good shot to put some points on the board.
JC Sherbert of the Big Spur. JC, last thing before we get you out of here. Anything else jump out to you in week 1? Games you're most excited? I mean, obviously LSU, FSU, I think is the headliner. Clemson, Duke on Monday night. Florida, Utah on Thursday. What jumps out to you? What are you most excited to see outside of South Carolina's game?
Well, the dozens of fans that will pack Wallace Wade Stadium, Chris, for the Labor Day. I mean, come on, man. I mean, last year, what kind of garbage game did we get last year on Labor Day night? Was it Louisville and somebody, or was that at least Louisville and Florida State we got? No, it was Louisville Notre Dame last year. Which, okay, fine, that's Notre Dame. But man, Duke and Clemson, shake my head. I mean, come on. I mean, so I am looking forward to seeing what Wallace Wade Stadium looks like on national television at night, because we hadn't seen it before, But that Florida State LSU game is going to be great. I'm going to be at a sports bar in Helen, Georgia, after floating down the Chattahoochee River, that day. But I'll be certainly curious to catch that. Curious to see if Virginia's gotten any better, and what exactly does Tennessee look like. You kind of think about Tennessee. It's like, well, Hooker was so accurate last year. Can Milton be just as accurate? So it's kind of one of those things where I'm not even watching like the competition, but more so the both teams and how they've changed. So I'm like that. And of course, Florida, Utah, we talked on JC and Morgan earlier today. Who's got more pressure on them, Florida or Utah in that game? And Mike said Florida. I don't know. I may think it's Utah because they know that they let that one get away last year. They know Florida's not Florida. You're not going to catch Florida at any better time than this year. And so, we'll see what happens with that. But there's I'll tell you what I'm kind of sneakily interested in East Carolina at Michigan. East Carolina's getting like 35 points. Well, Harbaugh's out and their offensive coordinator's out. So are they just going to let J.J. McCarthy call plays and rock the game? I mean, what's that gonna happen there? So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. But I'm really just looking forward to football coming out and seeing everybody again and watching some games at the tailgate. Maybe enjoying a little live music at the tailgate before and going in and watching the Gamecocks play the Tar Heels to open the season again.
JC, sticking with the Carolinas, let's not forget that Saturday night 10:30 game, Coastal Carolina at UCLA. That's going to be a fun one, I think.
If Jamie Chadwell was still the coach there, I'd agree with you. That hire, man. Maybe it's one of those hires where everybody says boo, and it ends up being good. That happens a lot, but I'm just like, Beck, really? But hey, Grayson McCall's still there, man, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how many fans UCLA has at the game because I think last year or 2 years ago they played South Alabama. There were like 14 people. Now it was bigger than Wallace Wade's crowds, but anyway. But yeah, that'll be a good one to watch too. I hope that I am in a good mood, so I'll actually watch it rather than a bad mood, which usually involves some sort of mix of an alcoholic beverage and Guns N' Roses albums or The Cure, even if I'm really sad.
I love it. JC Sherbert of the Big Spur of Inside the Gamecocks will be on their airwaves on Thursday at 11:30 every Thursday throughout the season. JC, of course, with us every Tuesday. JC, thank you so much for doing this. Really excited to talk ball. We made it, my friend. We're here. Excited to break it all down and be talking about a game that actually took place on the field this time next week.
Absolutely. We'll have a lot to chew up and spit out, Chris. It's been a great off season, but I think I'm with you. I'm ready to get there, and I do feel like we all made it. And so here we go. Let's do it.
JC, you're the man. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Safe travels to Charlotte, and y'all have a lot of fun there.
Hey, thanks, Chris.
Appreciate you. Great stuff from JC Sherbert. As always, in case you missed it, he's got the Gamecocks taking down UNC 35-20 in Saturday's game. Guys, that being said, we've reached that point entering hour number 3, our Q&A Power Hour. I want to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your calls, and more on the other side of the break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you. The Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We have officially entered our Q&A Power Hour. Want to hear from you. Your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377 as we sit here on this Tuesday of game week. Before we get into everything, before we get into your questions, we do have a voicemail that we are going to start the Q&A Power Hour with. So without further ado, we'll kick it off with a voicemail.
Tennessee. Hey, it's Dale, man, from East Tennessee. Hey, I will call you in person and talk to you and tell you, but I don't got much time. I got to get back to work here in a few minutes. But, man, I just want to say thanks, man, for sending me them tickets to Tennessee versus Virginia, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, Prince, man. He's the best. I knew when I started listening, you know, I ain't with the woman no more, you know, but I'm grateful something truly blossomed out of that relationship with her, and that's mine and your relationship, man. I'm glad to call you a friend. So thanks, man. And I kind of hope, man, that you got me tickets to sit in the Virginia section. You know, they say Virginia, what's their slogan? A lover's state, or the state of lovers. Because, man, I could use another one, you know. So hopefully you're sitting right there in the crowd of them so I can stick out like a sore thumb. So thanks, man, again. I know it's game week, so go Gamecocks, man. I got y'all beating them little Tar Heels 34-24. That's what I think will happen, man. Anyway, thanks for what you do, and I can't wait to take Keith to Nash Vegas with me, man, for the game. All right, Chris. Beat it out.
BDD out 34-24. BDD with his prediction. Guys, continuing your conversation, your calls. I want to hear from you. 843-790-3377. Always a great day when we hear from Dale. Guys, of course, Shane Beamer has been speaking to the media. We'll break down all of his comments on tomorrow's TDC. I'm sure many of you out there have been tuning in. You might be tuned in right now. I'm not exactly sure if he's still live. Beamer did have this to say about practice. Quote, I'll always shoot you guys straight. I'm disappointed with how we practiced today. We did not practice like it was game week. It wasn't everyone, but we had too many individuals and too many groups who practiced like everything is going to be okay on Saturday. So, what does it mean? Again, we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but really exciting stuff, guys, as we continue to count down the days. Just 4 days until kickoff. And, of course, Thursday night, we get this week one rolling, Florida and Utah. Austin Gregory says, Chris said he's paying me $100 Saturday night when we hang 47 on UNC, just putting that on the record. Austin, if South Carolina hangs 47 or more, I will absolutely give you $100. I'm just not there, man. I think everybody from that mindset right there, Austin, I think people think this is just going to be Tennessee continued. I just don't see it. I don't see it, man. I flat out don't see it. I think it's a new season with a new OC, with new pieces on the offensive line, with an inconsistent quarterback. I just don't see it. I don't see it, man. I think Austin, you made some bad picks in your life. I think that's one of the worst. I got to be honest with you. Either way, but I respect it. I respect your pick, and I hope you're right, but I'm not seeing it, man. I'm just not seeing it. Either way, let's get into your questions on YouTube. By the way, I love how our guy Dalton, I posted the quote from Shane Beamer. See Philly coming in with the doom and gloom. I literally just copy and pasted what Shane Beamer said. So it seems it's Shane Beamer supplying the doom and gloom on a Tuesday. Interesting. Either way, let's get in these YouTube questions. Let's see. Hunter Kelly, honestly surprised Sellers is third string the way that Luke Doty played at the spring game. You heard JC talk about it, guys. I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised that is the case at all. Let's see. Continuing the conversation. Jeff Gullidge, all the ore on the depth chart just means they're going to rotate them a lot in the game. For sure, a lot of guys will play. Jesse Jacobs, am I missing something? Where is Big Tree? He's a true freshman. Just didn't make the 2 deep. Bottom line. Just did not make the 2 deep. Let's see. Jeremy Wardell, we didn't really know our 2 safeties were as good as until injuries forced them into action. I think we are fine at safety depth-wise. We shall see. Spur your enthusiasm. We're going to destroy the Tar Heels. Lynn Turner says Tez Walker news is dominating the UNC news up here in Raleigh. Nobody is talking about the injuries in the secondary that were discussed on your show. Maybe using Tez's situation as a distraction. They could be. I mean, I think also it's just a really, I mean, it's like if Juice Wells was ineligible. That would be our top storyline. It absolutely would. Let's see. Spur your enthusiasm, an 11-plus win season. Let's see. Lynn Turner, my husband's an NC State fan. Devin Leary is not all that. Looked bad against ECU before he was hurt last year. Well, I know a lot of folks that would disagree with your husband on Devin Leary. Mantis says, Ray Davis will be playing on Sundays. Jacob E. says, I understand they're loaded with talent, but I don't see any way to justify Texas A&M being number 5 after going under 500 last year. Not to mention having Ole Miss under them after they won on the road last year. Fair points. Very fair points. Spur your enthusiasm says Joe Milton is Jake Bentley in orange. Y'all agree? Y'all agree with that? Seth says Joe Milton will be an average SEC quarterback at best, and their receivers aren't on the same level. Still don't get the Tennessee hype. Spur your enthusiasm. Why are we the only team that doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, Chris? I can tell you why. Spur your enthusiasm. I mean, admittedly, I will never be harder on a team than I am South Carolina because I know more about that team than any other. But I'll tell you this. This is why. Because I saw South Carolina. Here's the thing. I saw the final 3 games, but I have not forgotten the first 10. I was actually with Spur Your Enthusiasm watching the Gamecocks get shellacked 38-6 against Florida. I was in the stadium for 23-10 against Mizzou. I was there for the 48-7 beatdown to Georgia. I just haven't forgotten all those other performances. I just haven't. So that's one of the biggest reasons why. Let's see. Lynn Turner. I think South Carolina, North Carolina comes down to defense. Convos are all about quarterbacks, but it's going to come down to who gets more stops. No doubt. Driftwood, Spencer on the freedom that he has in the offense. He tells me to go get in my bag, and I've got a lot in my bag. Says they have a lot of trust in each other. It sounds good. Sounds good ahead of game week. Let's see. Jeff Gullidge, not to get ahead of ourselves, seeing we haven't even played week 1, but do you think it plays in our favor or against us that Georgia plays 2 cupcakes before us and UNC and Fern before them? I think it helps Georgia to get their quarterback situation, all that stuff figured out before they play the Gamecocks. But like you said, that's down the road. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Spur your enthusiasm.
Spur your enthusiasm. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up? Yeah, I just wanted to hop on real quick. I got to pick up my kids here soon, so I can only really listen to the back end of the show. But I just wanted to come on air real quick and just let everybody know. I know, like you said, 47 wouldn't be a realistic number for the Gamecocks. I understand, trying to stay realistic or cautiously optimistic. But the way I see it, this game's going to come down to special teams and defense starting off and getting the team hot. This game's going to go 56-24 South Carolina. We're going to beat the hell out of them. Fuck them win anyways.
Hey, listen, Carolina scores 47 or more Saturday night. I'll give you 10 wins. That South Carolina is legit offensively. I know UNC is not good on defense, but if you're clicking to that level out of the gate, then you know what? Maybe 10 wins is in the picture.
I just think, if you look at it with the way that everything plays out, you got to hope for, an offensive performance the same way as Tennessee. But at the same time, you look at Tennessee's defense and North Carolina's defense. Tennessee had one of the worst defenses in the SEC last year. North Carolina had one of the worst defenses in all of college football. If we can come out and just light on fire from the get-go, we're going to annihilate them. But I appreciate you having me on. I'll be listening from here on, but y'all have a good one.
Bryce, you're the man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I just say this, guys. Listen, it's to that point right there. Think about all right, the Tennessee game. You want to bring that up. Go back and watch the replay of that game. And go count all the players that made plays in that game who are no longer at South Carolina. Jaheim Bell, Josh Vann, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Brooks. They're not here anymore. So you just can't say it's carbon copy and paste. You just can't say that. There are some returning pieces, the most important of which are Spencer Rattler, Juice Wells, and Dakereon Joyner. But, dude, outside of that, who has made plays on a consistent basis? And, oh, by the way, 3 offensive linemen that were starting that game, they're gone. Who has made plays on a consistent basis that's back? I don't know how anybody can look and just say it's copy-paste because it's literally a different supporting cast. It's almost a completely different supporting cast. South Carolina ranks near the bottom in returning production. So that's not me saying that Carolina's going to go out and get shut out in week 1, but that's why I'm just not picking the 40-plus points. That's why I think it's lower scoring on both sides, by the way. UNC's got question marks at wide receiver. They got question marks at running back. They got question marks at O-line. These two teams are very, very similar in regards to their question marks. Now, I think South Carolina is better defensively than UNC. We're going to break all this down starting tomorrow, by the way. We're going to get into position unit comparison. We're going to get into our keys of the game. We're going to get into key matchups. Cannot wait for it. But I just don't look at the game and say these offenses are just going to click right out of the gate. I have a hard time believing that. I really do. And I know that, listen, it's a different OC. I get that. But I heard the same thing last year. And South Carolina sputtered out of the gate against Georgia State. So I don't know why anybody would put it past the Gamecocks to start slow on offense. Why anybody would do that blows my mind. Blows my mind. USC Edit says, Chris, who is stopping our guys? Well, UNC's got some ball players too, USC Edit. They've got some Power 5 ACC players. Cedric Gray at linebacker. Elijah Huzzy at corner. If DeAndre Boykins plays for them, he's a very good player. And Tavius Lane coming over from Georgia State. They've got questions defensively. Don't get me wrong. They have questions defensively. I'm just saying that, thinking Carolina's going to score 47, that's where you lose me. It's not going to be – South Carolina does not have one of the best offenses in college football. They just don't. They just don't. Not right now, they don't. And again, Austin, last year. Tennessee's defense was 37th. UNC's was 102nd. What was Florida's defense ranked, Austin? How good were they? And Carolina didn't score an offensive point. So, if you're going to take statistics from last season, you can't pick and choose which stats you take. That Florida game happened 7 days prior. 0 offensive points against one of the worst defenses in college football. I'm just saying. Maybe you're right. We'll see. Can't wait to watch it. Again, 843-790-3377. Braddock 843 says, Do you know the unis that we're wearing yet? Are we the home team or away? I think we're home. I do not know the uniforms. We probably won't know until Saturday, unfortunately, but it is what it is. USC Edit, you got to understand, Chris, there's a real possibility they can't stop our guys, and if they can't, they can't. Not saying I'm predicting it, but 47 can happen easy. Hey, from your lips to God's ears, maybe it can. We'll see. I'm not on the bandwagon of this is going to be some huge blowout game. And it's so funny. I see people comment on social media about, well, this is why Chris is saying this. This is why he's picking this. This is why he's ranking this. I'm trying to be right. I really am. I'm trying to be right. And so, I'm not, I saw somebody say that, Gamecock fans, they want to say it's going to be a blowout, but they're predicting a 3-point or 7-point game just to protect their sanity. No, I just really think this is a coin flip game. I really think this is going to be a back and forth type of ball game. And I've gone back and forth on my prediction. Admittedly, I've gone back and forth on the prediction. So we'll see. Only time will tell. I'm really tempted to drop the predictions on Thursday. I really am. I might do that because normally I was planning on predictions on Friday. I'm really tempted to do Thursday. What y'all think? I'm tempted, but I don't know what we talk about on Friday. I don't know. I'm tempted to get it out there, though. I really am. Brian Dean says SEC East order of finish. Number 1, South Carolina. 2, Georgia. 3, Tennessee. 4, Kentucky. 5, Mizzou. 6, Vandy. 7, Florida. Brian Dean, from your lips to God's ears, my friend. From your lips to God's ears. Let's see. Ethan K. Excuse me. Still don't see why Tennessee's getting so much love. Heupel's a good coach, but they are usually very inconsistent, and they lost so many pieces. Well, I think the Heupel effect, certainly. One of the reasons they're getting a lot of hype. Bisbee says Juice has 100 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. He very well may. Spur your enthusiasm. Says 56-24. And then says 80. I don't know what that means. 56-24, though. Cody says that 64 number in the over-under is straight up disrespectful to DQ and Nick and the boys in that secondary. Okay. Mantis, UNC won't face a better secondary all year. Jeremy Wardell, I just took South Carolina to win. Points are just a bonus. Chase Floyd, thank you, Chase. Join the BCC, he says. Great stuff. Patreon.com/BigCock You can click the link in bio as well on our social media and click the Big Cock Club link to get access there to our Discord. Let's see. Continuing through your questions here as we dive into the Discord. Let's see. Do we have anything in the Discord? Nothing much in the Discord today. Spur your enthusiasm. Who's now in the Discord, by the way? He's now in the Discord. Listen, if you were to ask me, I think we'll beat the hell out of all of them. I think Chris is giving the benefit of the doubt to those programs where he's reluctant to do the same for us. And I think you're talking about the power rankings, and I'll say this. I think it's splitting hairs between, really, man, 5 through 10. You could go almost any order. It's splitting hairs, but my rankings are what my rankings are. I stick by those. Hudson's got 34-20. South Carolina beating UNC. Tyler Knoll says, Beamer said the team looked like crap today in practice. Not what you want to hear in a game week. It's all coach speak. It's all coach speak, coach stuff, whatever, dude. It means nothing. It means nothing. I don't think it means anything. Let's see. Gamecock Fanatic says, Beamer just finished his press conference. Sounded good. Everyone pretty much healthy, and Beamer will be on set on game day. That'll be cool. Yeah, that'll be cool. Prediction Fridays are the best, USC Edit says. Okay, we'll wait. We'll wait till Friday. Why not? It's a great way to close out the week. It really is. It's a great way to close out the week. USC Edit says, having confidence that we gained from the end of last season's huge factor going into this year offensively. Just like you would say, what comes first, confidence or success? Now we get both. Listen, you make a good point. Having confidence, it can be done. I think that's most important for Spencer Rattler. That's the big thing. Everybody else, sure, but I think for Rattler specifically, having that confidence is big. I just don't think, again, though, it translates to, okay, well, we're going to score 60 now because we did it late last season. I don't know how much that really factors in. Gamecocks 11 says, what's the reason that Tez Walker's eligibility is in question? The transfer portal is a free-for-all, so why is a situation different? I mean, Gamecocks 11, I take off my Gamecock glasses. I think it's absurd he's not getting to play. The guy hit the portal before the rule was a thing that they were going to look at multiple time transfers and be more harsh on those and say guys can't play. He literally hit the portal before that took place. So he's getting punished for a rule that was made up after he entered the transfer portal. And by the way, what's even crazier, his first transfer came after he didn't even play at his first school. They had the COVID season. He didn't play and he left. And then, excuse me, he left Kent State because they fired their entire coaching staff. So, I mean, I think it's silly, man. And I'm very hesitant to ever side with the NCAA and what they do. They normally do not get it right. And so hard for me to favor and side in favor of them. Let's see. Guys, again, we'll have full thoughts on Shane Beamer's comments on the presser today. I have not listened, obviously, to anything, but we will not be airing the press conferences on our airwaves this season. In case you missed that, that is not going to be a thing. Last year we did that. And it honestly just gives us more opportunity for content. You know what I mean? It's one of those things you can go back, watch, listen to what Shane Beamer has to say. We are not going to be airing it here. Cody says, not taking Shane seriously with some of the comments. These coaches have to smoke screen and it's normal. I'd rather it be that way anyway. Yeah, Cody, same way. The same way to where I'm not going to, if he came out and said, we had the best practice of the year and we're great. And this, I would take it with a grain of salt. I'm also taking this with a grain of salt. You have to be fair on both ways. You have to be fair both sides, right? I mean, just because he says that, I don't think it really means much of anything. And to be honest, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe Beamer is taking that page out of Spurrier's playbook and downplaying how good he thinks his team or how good he knows his team actually is. We'll see. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll continue to take your questions, your comments, your calls, and more here on this Tuesday. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407. Serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho, Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, August the 29th, taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Tuesday. Again, guys, we will talk Shane Beamer's press conference on tomorrow's TDC, but he had this to say via our friend Brad Crawford on the offense. Quote, there's still some question marks. There really is. That wide receiver rotation, there's still a work in progress after the top three. The O-line rotation and how that progresses. The running backs after DK and Juju, what does that look like? So he also said sloppy out there today. Got some guys who just try to get through today and not try to get better. As a whole, nowhere near good enough to beat UNC Saturday night. So that's going to make one hell of a clip, by the way, on our social media. You can probably find that about an hour or so. We will have that up. I'm very curious to very, very curious to watch the presser and to hear the actual comments that Shane Beamer made. Ohio State names a starting quarterback. Kyle McCord will get the start for the Buckeyes. Of course, they are my pick to win the national championship this season. What's so funny, guys, is when I'll put up like the SEC power rankings or whatever. SEC power rankings, and people are commenting, he's a Clemson fan. He loves Clemson. I'm like, dude, if I was a Clemson fan, I'd put South Carolina 14th. I'm sure. So trust me, my guy. Trust me. Guys, I was just looking over the UNC depth chart. Their starters look like this, at least for now. On the defensive side, Desmond Evans at the power end, Kevin Hester Jr. at nose, Miles Murphy at the tech, Kamon Rucker at the jack. So it looks like they are preparing to not have, or excuse me, at the star, there's DeAndre Boykins. Okay. At the jack, Kamon Rucker, Mike linebacker, Power Eccles, Will linebacker, Cedric Gray, who's a really good player. At the corners, you've got Elijah Huzzy, who they're really, really high on, and Marcus Allen or Tayon Holloway or Trey Miller. Boundary safety, Don Chapman, field safety, Gio Biggers, and their star is DeAndre Boykins, as I mentioned. So that is the UNC defense. On the offensive side, their starters look like this. From the depth chart, William Barnes, Ed Montelis, Corey Gaynor, Willie Lampkin, Spencer Rowland on the offensive line, John Copenhaver or Kamari Morales, their starting tight ends, Drake May at quarterback, of course, British Brooks or Omarion Hampton at running back. They also have Elijah Green, Caleb Hood, and George Pettaway at running back. Tez Walker and Kobe Paceauer and Gavin Blackwell as your starting wide receivers. Also have J.J. Jones, Nate McCullum, and Andre Green as their twos. So that's kind of a look at UNC. Again, guys, we'll break down much, much more key matchups, keys to the game, all that good stuff heading into Saturday's ball game in Charlotte. Arthur Bear says, Chris, you might want to watch the presser yourself because it wasn't exactly said like that. Just a bad day at practice at certain positions. I'm definitely going to watch it, my friend. Arthur Bear, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Coach Ford says, surely Dowell Loggins is not having a poor performance from his offense. I don't think he's going to, but we shall see. Madison Duncan, I hope the OC and Rattler have come up with a playbook that's easy and comfortable for his skill set, then let it rip. I would certainly hope that is the minimum expectation of what will happen. So, Travis says, both lines of ours will be key. Don't get shoved around. That's a very good starting point indeed. Ethan says, I'm sure you've touched on this, but just tuning in. Thoughts on the Kerryon Joyner at starting tailback? It could be trouble. It's going to be very interesting, Ethan. I'm not going to sit here and say right now it's going to be trouble. I'm not a guilty till proven innocent guy. We shall see how it plays out. I've got my question marks for sure, though, Ethan. I'm not going to sit here in front to you and say that, I think the Kerryon Joyner is going to rush for 100 yards. The guy has never played running back before. So you got a guy starting at running back that not only has he never started at running back for South Carolina, he's never played running back for South Carolina. What does the rushing attack look like? The good news is you're not facing a UNC defensive line that should give you much trouble. So you're not facing a UNC defensive line I think it's going to give you many headaches. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. Coach Ford says Rattler's having to come up with a playbook. He has the guy that Parcells would have hired but did not as OC. Let's see. USC Edits is dropping his uniform predictions. Love it. Let's see. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. Just 4 days away from kickoff. D. Montgomery said Ohio State winning the Natty. At least we know why the kid in car seat said bullshit. I have no idea what you're talking about, but fair enough. The kid in car. Let's see. Officially Sports, what's your thoughts on what Beamer said? Officially Sports, I'll give full breakdowns tomorrow. I have not watched Beamer's presser yet. I would say this, though, on the practice comments, I'd take it with a grain of salt, man. I don't think it's – I really don't think it's – I mean, it's just like them saying we're having the best practices ever. We had the best practice we've had all fall camp, and it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't. So, I take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. I'm sure he's just trying to fire up guys or challenge guys or get them excited to play or whatever it might be. But I think it's all just gamesmanship. I really do. USC Edit says, give me 38-31 Carolina. I would take that. Brendan says, does DK go for 100-plus rushing against North Carolina? I will say no. I don't think so. I don't think we're there yet. I think the question is, does South Carolina as a team go over 100 yards? I think they should. I think they absolutely should. But I think it's going to be running back by committee. I don't think the Kevion Joyner gets all the carries. I don't think DK gets 100-plus. I'd love to see it, but I'm going to predict no right now. USC Edit says, I actually believe DK can have a great amount of success with right packages. That could be the most pleasant surprise at the end of the night. I hope so. I really do. Would love to see that. It will be very encouraging for, I'll say this. If South Carolina goes out there and rushes for 200 yards, will it be encouraging? Yes. You cannot draw conclusions, though, because UNC's defense was so bad last year. I'm not saying take any credit away. I'm just saying it's a long season. Let's see them do it against a high-quality SEC defensive line. But it'll be an encouraging sign for sure if you can hit that 100-yard or, God forbid, more mark. So let's see. John Edward, Chris, if you had to pick an upset this weekend, what would it be? That's a great question, John. But I don't know if I'm quite ready to lock in a prediction yet. Predictions will come later this week, as I said. There's a lot of cupcakes in the SEC, man. A lot of cupcakes. If there's one of those games I think could be closer than expected, I think UMass Auburn could be uncomfortably close. I don't know, man. I don't know. There's just so many cupcake games. It's tough to say. West Virginia, Penn State, I also think Saturday night could be a really good game. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Peyton.
Peyton, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Good. About yourself, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you asking. What's up?
So just calling in to talk a little matchup as far as North Carolina, South Carolina. So you and JC talked a little bit about it a while ago, and I'm just curious, man. Are there any certain weak points in UNC's rosters that you think we can exploit?
Well, where do you want to start on the defensive side? I mean, when you look at last year, they did add the Elijah Huzzy kid. I thought the conversation that we had with Andrew Jones at Tar Heel Illustrated was really interesting because you look at their team last year, and they lost a lot of guys in the transfer portal. Talking to him, he made it sound as if they were not so subtly forced out because of their lack of performance, if you will. I still think, though, South Carolina should be able to have some success in the passing game. They added Elijah Huzzy, the corner, at 5'10", 200 pounds. They like his game. But at the other corner spot, Marcus Allen or Tayon Holloway, at the safety spot, they have questions. I think South Carolina, with their athleticism on the outside, and Spencer Rattler, of course, throwing the rock, should be able to have success. You look at the front seven for North Carolina. I mean, there's major questions there. Cedric Gray is a really good player at that will linebacker spot. But outside of that, I mean, you're talking about a defense that was abysmal a season ago, stopping the run. They couldn't stop anything. Right? And then on the flip side, I think JC hit the nail on the head with the Jordan Strawn matchup off the edge. That's when he should be able to wreak havoc and get after Drake May. The other one I look at, and you mentioned weaknesses or weak points, I think their run game, I think very similar to South Carolina. They have major question marks and major concerns in regards to making a run push and having balance in the offensive attack. So I think South Carolina there with their improvements at linebacker, I think they can win that matchup there and win that battle. And I think the secondary, you like how that matches up. I think that'll be tough, though. I do. I like what UNC has on the outside at wide receiver. So it's a fairly even matchup across the board. I think, though, the two biggest areas, and we'll talk about this more as the week goes on, I think the passing attack, Spencer Rattler, throwing the football, pushing it downfield. And I think defensively, clogging up running lanes and stopping that run game and making Drake May win through the air and maybe forcing them into some 3rd and longs, maybe making him make some plays, make some throws he doesn't want to make, disrupting the timing. So those are 2 areas that jump out to me, Peyton. I think there are some others as well, but those are the top 2 I would see.
So I think, us Carolina fans, I think one of our biggest concerns going into this game is can we run the ball effectively?
Mm.
You know, with all the question marks up front and our lack of depth at running back, I think, you know, we've said this in the off season a good bit. You know, with UNC not returning a lot of guys from last year, they're going to be our offensive line should be able to hold up against UNC's level of competition up front. So, you know, I don't think running the ball is out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're gonna really have to put our money where our mouth is week 3, but I think you know, running the ball I don't think is going to be as big of an issue as a lot of Carolina fans are thinking it's going to be this year.
And I hope you're right. You know, the thing that the reason I'm reserved on it is just because, I mean, I saw South Carolina, Peyton, struggle to run the ball against Georgia State. You know, I saw South Carolina struggle to run the ball against lesser competition. We're not talking about Georgia. We're talking about Georgia State, like lesser. And the offensive line, you know, it's the offseason. So nobody wants to have the critical opinion. I totally get it. But, like, on paper, the O-line's worse. It just flat out. The O-line's worse on paper. Less starts, less experience, less proven Power 5 and SEC talent. It's a question mark. I'm not saying that's how it's going to play out, but I just need to see it happen. Oh, by the way, Dakereon Joyner's your starting running back. I got high hopes for him too, but you got questions in the run game. That's all I'm saying. This is a UNC team, though. As I've talked about before, I talked about this summer, I think the running game, the offensive line could look much better in week 1 than it's actually going to be this season because of I don't think UNC has SEC bodies up front, like the type of bodies you'll see when you get into SEC play. So, but on the flip side, maybe rushing for 200 in week 1, maybe it gives you a sort of confidence to carry that forward and be a little bit better than we're expecting. So it's a fascinating game, Peyton. It's a fascinating matchup. There are question marks over the board. We'll finally start to get some answers on Saturday night.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I was trying to make there. You know, UNC is not going to have the top tier SEC caliber of talent that we're going to be accustomed to for most of the season. So that's the point I was getting at. You know, I don't necessarily think that it's going to running the ball is going to be a massive glaring issue after the end of week 1, simply because of the fact that, you know, UNC is not they're not SEC caliber talent. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just what it is. No dig at UNC or anything. It's just that's not the level of competition that we're going to be accustomed to playing. So, but you know, to talk the passing game a little bit, you know, you hear Omega Blake's name has just been, you hear it over and over and over again through this fall camp, and I'm looking for big things out of Omega Blake. You know, they say he's fast as lightning. They say he's quick, got great hands. So I mean, I'm looking for Omega Blake to have a decent game. You know, we expect big things from Juice Wells, and you know we're kind of got our reserved expectations for Nick Harbor outside, but I think it's gonna be Omega Blake or Eddie Lewis, maybe even. Mm-hmm. But I think Omega's gonna be the one to look for Saturday.
I mean, we've heard his name so much, man. I mean, I think it's one of those things at this point you expect him to be that guy. After having a great fall camp and great spring, and just the reports are awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think Shane Beamer obviously, you know, mentioning today that there's a battle at wide receiver, you know, past the starting 3 of Juice Wells, Amarian Brown, and Xavier Legette. You know, who are your next guys? So it's wide open. I think certainly Omega Blake, no doubt, is going to have an opportunity to really solidify himself as one of the top weapons on South Carolina's roster. So it's a great opportunity for a lot of guys on South Carolina's roster, on UNC's team as well. And that's what week one, I mean, that's why the depth charts, you do sort of take them with a grain of salt in week one, just because, all you've seen is practice. All you've seen is scrimmaging each other. You'll learn a lot more. I mean, because there's some guys, they practice okay, and the lights cut on, and they become a different animal. There's other guys, they practice well, lights come on, and they piss down their leg. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a lot of fun to see sort of who emerges and who claims those spots.
Absolutely. That's kind of going to be the story amongst Carolina fans all season. Who's going to emerge this week? Who's going to come out this week? Just for the simple fact that there are so many young cats that are going to be playing big minutes for us. It's going to be a question all season long: is who's it going to be this week? Who's going to show out this week? So, it's like you said, it's going to be really exciting to watch, man.
Indeed, Peyton. Always a pleasure, my friend. You always bring the heat, and I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris. This is arguably, well, not arguably, it's the best college football podcast on the internet. You can't help but call in, chop it up with the man C Philly. So I'll holler at you tomorrow, man. You stay cool out there. Thanks for his up show. Go Cox, buddy.
Peyton, I appreciate you, man. Go Cox. Thanks so much. Great stuff from our friend Peyton. Always a pleasure to chat with him. Getting back into your questions. Let's see. You guys are talking uniform. Spur Your Enthusiasm said this: I don't care if we play naked so long as we win. I would rather not see that, but I understand your sentiment. Let's see. Jacob E. says, May will have to do it all for them to win. They're replacing their top pass catchers. Their supposed number one receiver may not even be eligible to play. UNC folded to some bad teams down the stretch. They absolutely did. They absolutely did, my friend. You are right. I can't wait. I think it's going to be, again, a fascinating game. I cannot wait to watch it. CCM says, Chris, it'll be 63-38, Cox. Just 63 to 38 from here on out. We'll just do 63-38. I love it. Guys, again, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Our good friend Brad Crawford tweeted out this morning his official season predictions yet again. He's got 7-5, 4-4 with a Music City Bowl invite. His 4 losses to Georgia, Tennessee, Mizzou. Or excuse me, his 5 losses, my bad. His 5 losses to Georgia, Tennessee, Mizzou, A&M, and Clemson to close out the season. Let's see. Let's see. Austin Gregory, as much as I believe we win 7 games this year, there's nothing more than I want nothing more I want than to win 8 or more. So we can end the Beamer Muschamp comparisons from John Edwards' friend Mark Ryan. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, nobody wants another offseason of hearing about Will Muschamp and Shane Beamer. Nobody wants to hear it. Brewer Nation says our best combos, period, the end. Stormtroopers, white, garnet, the classic big game garnet, white, garnet, white, black, black, all black, and black, garnet, garnet. Is he right or wrong? What do y'all think? I think we're probably going to wear black, garnet, garnet on Saturday night. If I had to guess, I would imagine that will be the uni combo. We shall see. We shall see. I think that's probably what they go with. Either way, guys, 843-790-3377. Spur Your Enthusiasm. Putting the world on notice, DK will run for over 100, breaking a big one for 50-plus yards. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. It could happen. Daddy O says Tar Heel defense should get lit up like a Christmas tree on Saturday night. Let me ask you this. Let me pose this question. Game 1 for new OC Dowell Loggins. South Carolina facing a UNC defense that was at the bottom of college football a season ago. How many points must South Carolina score for you to feel confident that the Gamecocks have made strides and will be vastly improved from what they were a season ago? Is there a specific number total in your mind that if South Carolina scores X amount of points or more, you feel confident the offense is primed for a big 2023? Is there a number in your head? Jacob E. says, Pass Pro will be everything for us against North Carolina. If he has time, Rattler will shred much like he did against Tennessee and Clemson. Indeed, hey, protecting Rattler. I think if Rattler gets time, no doubt. If Rattler gets time, no doubt, you should have a fantastic offensive day. River Nation says 38-21 Gamecocks. Okay. I would absolutely love to take that. I would love to take that for sure. Andy Rossway says 45. Brad Perkle, per sources incoming. He says one guy in a Gamecock Facebook group I'm in is 99% on jerseys. He said white helmets, garnet jersey, white pants. Take it for what it's worth, but the dude is usually spot on. Brad, his name isn't Skyland, is it? Just double checking. Austin Miller, just win and be consistent and look good doing it. Look good, feel good, play good. Indeed. People that say uniforms don't matter, I mean, I like my team to look good while they're doing it. That's pretty much it. Let's see. Ah, yes. Spur. I almost forgot about this. Spur your enthusiasm. Good catch. The guy who messed up the Georgia State game. Yeah, my uni guy was fired after that Georgia State game. Yep. Cody says, game 1 for a brand new OC, 12-17 freshman, potentially seeing snaps in the game for South Carolina. And some of you guys are predicting 50-plus points. Where are you getting your drugs? Because I want some. I mean, that's where I sit, Cody. It's not that I think South Carolina is going to be abysmal offensively or have a bad team or anything of the sort. I mean, you just have so many questions, and you're telling me they're all going to click? And Carolina's going to score 50? I just don't see it. I don't see it. Guys, we're going to jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll close out in style with your questions, your comments, your calls, and more on the other side. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. 8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, August 29th, final 10 minutes or so as we close out this Tuesday. 4 days from kickoff. We're 2 days from Florida and Utah. Cannot wait to watch some college football all weekend long. Let's see, getting back into your questions. Coach Ford just says this: I want to see Logan's scheme and execution, speed getting plays in, being creative. I do agree with you, Coach Ford. There's a passing of the eye test that we need to see on Saturday night. There's no doubt. Spur your enthusiasm. Freshmen have been reliable in recent years for us, even dating back to, and I know we hate to bring them up, the Muschamp years. For sure. I mean, listen, for sure, you know, you can rely on freshmen, but, you know, week one, we'll see. We'll see. Robbie Davis, Texan. He said, what's up, Chris? It's the Zaxby's Hall of Famer. My prediction is Gamecocks 35, Tar Heels 28. Okay. We had some other texts here as well, but guys, do not hesitate to reach out via text, by the way. He says 2 picks and a blocked punt will result in a 35-14 win for the Gamecocks. Okay. Another text here. Robbie Davis, he just followed up 4 more days until Gamecock football. Beamer ball to the moon. Beamer ball to the moon indeed, my friend. Ruben Rumination, which statement last year was the dumbest? Find some joy or mix in a water. Mixing a water is Yuva's thing. It's fine. I think that's funny. Find some joy was whatever. It is what it is. You know, it's funny. I'll just say this, Rumination, on the airwaves. I'm not going to tweet this because I know better. But, you know, I posted Shane Beamer's post-practice comments, and I almost wanted to tweet and say, did anybody in the media ask Shane Beamer to find some joy? But, dude, see, here's the thing. We can speak on that as a joke. But you know, people on Twitter, if I said that, would just they would freak out. You know what I mean? But it's funny. It's funny. But anyways, figured I know better, and I would not do that. Either way, I would expect find some joy moments this season. I would expect that. Let's see. Jeff Gullidge says, per sources, if, and it's a big if, which studies show it happens 100% of the time, but if we score more points than UNC, we will win the game. Big if true. Big if true. Justin Bryant, a sandstorm is seriously brewing. Exciting times indeed. 27-23 Gamecocks. Okay, so Justin coming in way under the point total. Way under the point total. But I like the score, 27-23. I could see that too, Justin. I could absolutely see that. Austin Gregory, dumbest statement last year was actually a question. Shane, do you sense any give up in the locker room? Yeah, that was our friend Phil Kornblue after the Georgia game. It was an interesting way to phrase it for sure. It was an interesting way to phrase it, no doubt. Yeah, and Shane Beamer responded with some venom, no question. Anyways, guys, just a couple of minutes to go. Hey, do not forget, by the way. Oh, wow, get this. ESPN will air the following week 1 college football games and select theaters this weekend. Wow. North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, LSU, Florida State, and Clemson and Duke. I wonder, dude, how do we find out which games? I mean, that sounds like a blast. Watching a game in a movie theater? That would be crazy. That would be absolutely crazy. Guys, do not forget, by the way, the inaugural TSUS post-game call-in show brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Services will air within 10 minutes after the end of South Carolina, North Carolina on Saturday night, and after every single Gamecocks football game this season. Very excited for the post-game call-in show. We'll be right here taking your questions, your comments, your calls, immediate reaction, the post-game show after the Gamecocks take on UNC. And again, guys, the plan will be this. Immediately following the game, I'll record the post-game reaction, get that uploaded right after that. So within 10 minutes of the game ending, we'll go live. We'll get the post-game show going. Again, taking your questions, comments, and calls at 843-790-3377. Austin Gregory says this, wonder how the lingering effects of tomorrow's hurricane may affect FSU, LSU, and Orlando on Thursday. Austin, that game is Sunday night, by the way. Also curious to see how it may affect LeBron's legacy. I don't know if you're trying to make a funny joke. I don't know what it is, but yeah. Let's see. Todd, does Nick score a touchdown this Saturday? No, I don't even think he's going to play a whole lot. So I will go with no. Anyways, guys, really excited for the post-game call-in show, hearing all you guys' comments. Hopefully, we are all celebrating. Oh, Driftwood commented 35-21. Driftwood, somehow I missed your comments. I apologize. What are your other ones? I've been looking. I haven't seen. Oh, here we go. I don't know how I've been missing this. With the clock running, I will take the under. I like the under too. I think that is I think that's the play, to be totally honest with you. I think that's the play. So Spur your enthusiasm. I wonder how the weather will affect the Tar Heels. Sandstorms are dangerous. I hear you. I see what you did there. Very nice. I apologize for missing your comments. Driftwood, I apologize for missing your comments. Austin Gregory, comment in the Big Cock Club Discord. I get roasted 90% of the time for my comments anyways. I mean, I like your comments, man. Hey, listen, beauty's in the banter. I get it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the comments, no doubt. Austin Gregory, with the third pick in the NFL draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Spencer Rattler, quarterback, South Carolina. Hey, speak it into existence indeed, my friend. Love that. Absolutely love that. Guys, really great stuff today. Again, I want to say thank you so much as we check live right now to give you all an update. Of course, there are, 2 more days in the month? We've got the 30th and the 31st. So there are 2 more days in the month. All right, 2 more days in the month. As of right now, for the month, we sit at 102,327 podcast downloads. When you think about the fact that that was taking, we posted the podcast last week, but nowhere near our normal capacity of doing so. So I cannot say thank you guys enough, guys. Truly, it's an incredible accomplishment. I mean, 100,000 downloads in a month is I mean, it's wild. Really, truly, it's wild. So thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it, man. It's incredible. Incredible. So, let's see. Lynn Turner, as my Wolfpack friends would say, tar babies are going down. Austin Gregory says, I got to start pronouncing Rattler correctly. Austin, I was corrected last year when I was saying Rattler. They said, no, it's Rattler. So I don't know, man. Maybe I've been saying it wrong the last year and a half or last year or so, but I was corrected when I said Rattler. So I just would caution you there. Let's see. Okay. Guys, again, be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon as well so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content. Also, of course, subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can find us there. And do us a favor. Leave us a review. Give us your thoughts. Give us your feedback. I actually really appreciate those and value those. We had somebody, I don't know who it is, leave a review saying, hey, these ads, they're cutting in the middle of sentences. I love the show, but the ads, they're giving me so many problems. We have since adjusted. I've done a lot better job of putting the ads in areas where it does not break up the show. If I did not get that feedback, I would not have known. So I appreciate you all doing that. Also, guys, thank you all so much for the love and the support on the merchandise side of the business. If you placed your orders by our buy kickoff delivery date, you will have your merchandise by Saturday. I can guarantee you that. Guys, again, appreciate you all tuning in. We have hit 3 o'clock. Thank you all so much. Appreciate tuning in. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.